What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate, Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere. There's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Speaking of Patreon, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon, so a massive shout out of thanks and appreciation to Neo the One, Lost Cat FE, Rob W, Open Minded, Reese Pound, Del West Watson, Mike, Muted, Dick Earth Skeptic, Chris Hillman, NA Literalist, Maria Neelands, Unbelievable Productions, Blue Ridge Ranger, Rob H, Burn Fat Till My Stomach Is As Flat As the Earth, Nathan Thompson, The Real Gabster, Windrider, Missouri Bear, Henrik86, Liam Nedrick, Owen Jennisons, Abraham Mohammed, Dave Rakia, Gafford, Naibai, Adrian Quintana, Skeptic936, Life is Short, Fireball X, Felix Hung, TheFlatEarthChannel.com, Texas Mike, Edwin Johnson, Kirsten Smith, Alexander Main, David Wayne Foster, and Dank. So another massive thank you to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Now we are joined by Neil and Steve, at least in cheap Discord, so I'll raise the mic on them and we can enjoy hopefully a conversation while I set up for today's live show. Hello.
Good morning.
I'm trying to figure out how to get on Google Plus. I can't.
Every morning.
I give up.
You just give up.
Hey, Neil.
Some devices just don't allow. If it's a PC, it'll just connect instantly. If you're trying to connect on a mobile or something, then it's hit and miss whether or not your mobile will work with it.
Well, it says I need Google Hangouts, and I got it. So I don't know what the heck they're doing. Anyway,
I don't know.
I think somebody has to invite me.
Are you asking the younger generation to help you, or is this something you're doing on your own?
No, it's not a generational
Trying
thing.
to do it myself.
It's a software hardware thing. Don't worry about it. Just, stick to Discord. It's worked till now. Plus, it's quite useful for you to point out to the audience when the opponent's completely rumpusing the shit out of them, the point that's being made. Obviously, I shut that down so that the audience doesn't have to be subject to the convoluted cluster screw of nonsense that is the audio track when it's two people talking at once. Well, I can just stop that as a producer. But it doesn't change the fact that the audience is then unaware that that's actually happening until you point it out, Neil. So it is actually quite useful.
It's a matter of trying to do it now. It's principle.
You're serving the better good by staying where you are.
Hello.
Hey, Fletcher. Take one for the team, Neil. Good job, buddy.
Hey, Flatsoid.
Hey, Nathan.
Hold on, just one sec. How's your helium balloon coming along?
I'm gonna get it Saturday morning. Start doing the test Saturday probably. I think I'm gonna do it a few times from different angles maybe.
Well, hopefully we'll get to hear about it at least after the weekend, and then maybe see some footage during the week. Fingers crossed. No pressure, obviously.
No pressure, huh?
No pressure.
Yeah, I would hope there's pressure, otherwise it won't work.
Don't worry, there's no downward force.
It's more about the practicality of you being able to utilise it as a demonstration, i.e. getting it to stay static, which may or may not be very easy, you just don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the hardest part is gonna balance it.
Exactly. And until you're doing it, you'll know what you've got to overcome once you start doing it, I'm sure.
Nathan, yesterday I had 3 workers show up I had more than 3 workers. I had 5 utility trucks show up, and they were just waiting for the boss to come around to tell them where to start because they're changing all the fiber optic wires, or changing everything to fiber optic, actually. So I took the opportunity to strike up a conversation with 3 of them. I've posted it. It's 12 minutes long. I don't know if you want to play it in the pre-show, but it's my own recording, and it was pretty good. That's right. It's a masterpiece.
So did you ask permission to record it?
Yes, I did. I said, hey, I have a YouTube channel. I won't ask you for your names, and I won't show anything, but I want to ask you questions about the nature of the Earth. And they said, sure. And
college to learn to use common sense.
okay, so what is common sense to you?
Common sense is like read and comprehend when you're reading instructions to put together a table or a chair.
Okay.
I mean, if you're reading and understanding what they're telling you, then you'll be able to succeed at putting together the chair.
Let me give you an example. Common sense. Your kitchen pipe under the sink broke, water's gushing in. Is it common sense to stare at it or go find the shutoff valve and turn off the water immediately?
B.
B. Okay. We're on the same page. Okay. All right. So I'm with three friends here working on the property. I asked them if they'd comment on the nature of the Earth. Do they feel it's round, spherical shaped? Are we spinning 1,039 miles at the equator? And questions that will lead off of that. So I'll start with you. What do you feel? Do you feel the Earth is
round
spinning?
for sure.
So you feel it's round?
Absolutely.
Do you feel spin right now?
You don't feel it because you're not accelerating or decelerating. You're moving at constant speed.
Okay, but when you're in your car and you're going, are you moving?
If you're moving, if you're
But do you
pushing the
notice
gas,
the motion?
when you get to speed, not so much.
Okay, but you still feel the motion when you hit a bump in the road.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so
Well,
you do know motion. Your senses don't betray you.
But if you're in an airplane and it's quiet, you know you're moving because it's loud. You can feel yourself accelerate and decelerate.
I've been on airplanes before. Have you gentlemen been on airplanes before?
I have.
Yeah.
Okay, do you feel motion up there with the airplane? I do.
I do, of course.
Okay, so motion is sensible through your senses. That's all I'm saying. Your senses don't betray you. Okay? I mean, do they or no? In this case, no, sometimes. But in this case, like if we're spinning 1,000 miles at the equator, and you're saying you don't feel that motion because you're on the Earth, spinning with the Earth, that's your argument, right?
Yeah.
Okay. If I get off the Earth, is the Earth still spinning?
Oh, of course the Earth is still spinning.
Okay. So then, if the Earth is still spinning when you get off the Earth, why does a flight from LAX to Charlotte, North Carolina take 4.5 hours to go west to east and 4.5 hours to go east to west? Because if you're in the air and the Earth is spinning, then the flight back, California's coming at
You
you.
ever been to Hawaii?
Hang on. Let's stay on this question first. So if the Earth is still spinning, like you said, when the plane goes up, and it would have to, then the flight from east to west should take 1.5 hours because at that latitude that they give us, the Earth is spinning 860 miles per hour.
I'll change geographic locations. When you go to Hawaii, it takes about 4 hours and 53 minutes. On the way back, it takes about 5 hours and 20 minutes.
Yes, I understand. A little bit of difference due to jet streams, I'm not arguing. I'm talking about...
Not all jet streams. Spinning of the Earth as well.
No, well, but let's put it to test. If
Now,
the Earth is... Hang on. We're gonna challenge it. If the Earth is...
He's got it.
If the Earth is spinning 860 miles per hour and the plane's going 500 miles an hour towards the 860 miles per hour with no jet stream or anything, that flight should take 1.5 hours, but it takes 4.5. So when you go up in a drone, the Earth should pass underneath you, but it doesn't. You go on a helicopter, the continent should come to you, but it doesn't. From every reality test, we can't prove the spin of the Earth. That's all I'm saying. You can't prove it. Now, I'm not saying they're not telling us it's happening, but you can't prove it in reality. What say you?
That's interesting. That's something that I will start looking into. I've never thought of that.
Hang on. What do you say?
Look at the sun.
So maybe the sun's moving.
I doubt it.
Well, something's moving.
If you look at just our planets, how they're moving, yeah, I don't have all the freaking things on there. But if you go on there and describe it, how it's spinning, the speed that they have, so relative to our sun, they get the estimate of how fast.
So you're saying the sun is not moving?
The sun's moving.
So then the sun is moving, not the Earth.
But we're going around the sun.
Well, how do you prove that?
It's hard to prove.
No, it's a reification fallacy when they give us a model. The whole sphere is a model.
For us to measure, we got to live thousands of years. We only live, 50, 60 years?
Are you saying they measured the Earth?
What do you mean measured the Earth?
Well, the circumference and the radius.
They measured
Because if you have a ball, you have to have a circumference. If you have a ball, from the center to the top is the radius. Have they got that measured, or is that a thought?
From the center to any edge is the radius,
Correct. That's what we're
which
saying.
is not really an edge.
Well, the top. Let's just call it the top surface of the sphere. So that's given to us at 3,959 miles. So the radius of the Earth is 3,959 miles. That would mean that the horizon, as far as your eye could see, would be what? What's the demarcation of that?
Depends on where you're at. Sea level, mountain.
Correct. Good answer. But lower you are or higher you are is not the question.
If you're at sea level looking out in the ocean, what, 30-something miles, approximately?
Well, they say for a 6-foot guy, it's only 3 miles.
Yeah. If you're sea level looking at the sea without any...
They're saying it's 3 miles. Yeah, it's a 6-foot person.
3 miles?
Yeah, with your eyes, not with a telescope or anything.
Oh, okay. Well,
Or binoculars.
yeah, we're limited.
Okay, so, but that's math, right? That's math.
Our eyes are limited. To
I agree. I'm on your side there. So I'm agree. That's optical, right? But if the Earth is 3,959 mile radius, then the curve is also math. Where would it start? Like you said, at sea level, it would start this far out. The higher you go, it's further out because you're looking from higher down. Everyone understand?
Yes.
Okay. So at a 1-foot observer height, you can see the horizon well over 10 miles. But the globe math for this model that they reified into reality says it should only be 1.22 miles by geometry. So we know the Earth is not a sphere because all you got to do is get on the 1 foot high above the sea. And when that horizon could be seen over 10 miles out with a P900 camera, telescope works better than our eyes, the horizon is the Earth curve that they tell us. Well, the Earth curve has to start at 1.22 miles, but it's well over 10 miles because you have 2 oil platforms that one is 9.4 miles and the horizon's behind that. So Earth curve is the horizon, but it's not where it's supposed to be. So therefore debunking Earth curve. Do you see what I'm saying? This is the argument. That's why it's on the internet.
That's deep.
It's deep. So I would just suggest look into it and ask good pertinent questions, because when I look into what the globe is, they always call it a model and they give it numbers. A guy named Al-Biruni in the 11th century went on top of a mountain and he measured dip angle from the top of the mountain to the horizon that day. But as you and I know, you go on a different day, it's foggy, it looks a lot closer.
Yeah.
So he didn't measure geometry, but that's what they give him credit for.
And light refraction.
Well, okay, that's good. So refraction is another thing. Do you gentlemen know what refraction is?
No, never heard of that term.
Okay, well, you can't measure the geometric limitations of a sphere if you have refraction because you can never see it. But they claim to have seen it. And Al-Biruni didn't know about refraction when he measured it. So the current number is wrong. All I'm saying is that even if you bring refraction, then you destroy a sphere with 3959 because you can never see the geometric horizon because he's saying, as they do, that light refracts it. Well, if it refracts it, how do you know where R is? How do you know it's 3959 if you never saw it? How do you say Venus is the same size as Earth if you can't even measure Earth? You see what I'm saying? So the whole thing that I'm intrigued about this is that when I look to the science publications, they keep calling it a model, a thought experiment. And I want reality. I want geometry. You see?
Wow.
Isn't that something?
Yeah.
That is something.
So I'll give you a conclusion.
You got me curious on that. I'm going to start looking into that.
Yeah, so it's called common sense. You started it off. I thank you for your involvement. This is not an easy subject at times because, people have been taught all their life it's something. But then when you ask questions like, how do you have gas pressure without a container? Can you have gas pressure in your tire without the tire?
No.
Then how do you have all this air next to that vacuum of space, which is, they tell us, 10 to the minus 17 torr, a lot of zeros. How do you have air next to a vacuum? Wouldn't it find a way to fill the available empty space? But it doesn't. So why do we have 14?
Unless there's something so dense that it doesn't allow it to crush.
Yes, a container of some kind. Now, we don't know what the container is. Now, the Bible calls it a firmament, okay? Yeah. But the point is, on day 4 in the Bible in Genesis, it says that God made the sun, the moon, and the stars on day 4 and put it inside of this firmament. But we experience,
Like it's outside of the firmament.
no, it's inside the firmament, and the firmament is the barrier, like this gentleman is saying. It fits the Bible narrative, is all I'm saying.
Okay.
So now we have 14.7 psi at sea level. You go a mountain, it's a little less because you have a gradient. But how'd you get gas pressure in the first place? You need a container.
Something that's sealing it.
Sealing it. So we have the Earth's system with the sun rising and the heat and the gases and the oxygen being made and the trees breathing CO2 and all, the cycle.
Yeah.
And so all the gas is produced at ground level.
Right.
That's why we have 14.7 psi here. And as you go up, it's a gradient. But if it's not contained, what would happen to the gas at ground level? It would disappear. It would fill all of this empty space. So do you actually think space, as they describe it, is real? A vacuum next to air pressure? Is that possible?
No.
Common sense again?
Yeah.
It's not possible. So it's a second law of thermodynamics violation. Heat to cold, right? Gas would escape. It's called entropy, right? You have a little leak in your tire. It might take a week, but it's going to lose it.
Yeah.
Do we have a leak up there?
Do you have something to write with? You said that you have some YouTube channel.
Yeah, I'll give you. I'll turn you on to all my research material,
Okay, yeah.
and I'll exchange phone numbers with you guys. And any question that you pose to me, I could take it to other people.
The way you see things, and I would like to show you the writing that I do.
I'd love to see it.
Yeah, I love controversy. So.
Oh, I like it. I already like you. You must like hot sauce too, because that goes with controversy.
Is this?
I just bought a molcajete to make.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I just bought one. Yeah, give me one that I could have, and then.
You can have that one.
Okay, and then I'll call you and leave a message on your cell phone. Just put your cell phone numbers. Anyway, I want to thank you, gentlemen.
Okay.
This has been fun.
See the difference between normies and trolls?
Yeah, there's a massive difference. I actually put my camera on to show the audience my goosebumps while that was playing.
It was so much fun.
Yeah, I could see where if you had a bit more.
Go on.
No, go on. Who was that?
Go on, whoever that was.
It's just me. I'm wondering why I can hear other people, but they're coming out your mic, and I don't know why that is. If that's a glitch,
Maybe my mic's set wrong in Discord. I'll have a look. Thank you for letting me know.
I don't know. I don't know if it's just me, but I can hear like other voices, and they're only coming out your mic,
No, that's normal.
and everyone else is.
That's normal. Don't worry about that.
All right, never mind.
Yeah, the other Hangout is connected to you via me, so you just get to hear everyone who's talking in the Hangout through me. Don't worry about that. Hey, Paul,
right.
by the way. Yeah, that was ace. That was really epic. Nice to hear a normie conversation. And, most people will widen their eyes when they hear it phrased the way you phrased it. And it gave me goosebumps, not because of what you were saying to the guys, more because of you, specifically you, 10th Man, because you've come such a long way. You know what I mean?
Well, thanks to you guys. I mean, thanks for the show and for the corrections when corrections are needed and the advancement when ideas click in my head. And I love people, so I talk to people about so many other subjects. So once I had a full grasp of how to approach this, and it took time, obviously, and hearing you back and forth and Quantum and everybody else, it's time to flower, right? It's time to go after it. But last night they got a special surprise. All three of them got the link to your interview with Mitchell and Paul on the plane. So they're watching that first before I send them this rendition of their own interview, which they'll get today.
All right. Why that particular interview?
Well, I found that one to be very instructive because there was no interruptions. It was very educational. And so I want them to start off on an educational basis before they come onto your show. Well, obviously, they got your show because I sent your version of it. So if they tap on your other videos, they're going to see the trolls or hear the trolls and see what's going on. So just
like
a good
the order.
entry.
So you went in, you went 3-1-2, which is the order I would go if I had unlimited time. In other words, I didn't think that the attention span of the person I was talking to was severely limited for whatever reason, and it seems you gauged that correctly. Obviously, that was the result that we heard. But I would also pick that order. So I'd open up with the Black Swan, if time wasn't limited. I'd open up with gas pressure without a container if I thought time was limited. But I'd end on that if I had, you know, enough time to give them a nice, concise, detailed explanation, I'd do it in exactly the order that you did it. Sorry, not you started off with the rotation, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's the most challenging to cover. So it's nice to get that done, and then move on to the black swan, which is more advanced but easier to explain if you've got the patience of somebody to actually listen. And then you end on the one that they'll undoubtedly, the thing you end on is the thing that will stick in their mind, which is how can you have gas pressure without a container? So the order you did, I like the order sort of 3, 1, 2 in terms of the top three.
You can definitely have gas pressure without a stupid thing to say.
What's that?
Yeah, you can. Yeah.
I can't hear him.
Yeah. Someone blows in your face. That is pressure without a physical container.
It's not contained. It dissipates immediately.
Yeah, there's no container and there's air pressure, right?
Yeah, and then it dissipates. So it's not contained, is it? So you can't then, once you've blown on your hand, measure the pressure. I'm responding to you. You seem to be talking through me. You seem to be talking through me immediately. This isn't going to go well. I'm immediately responding to your claim, and you're immediately talking through me.
I'll be quiet.
So the pressure that you blow on your hand dissipates.
Yep.
It's gone immediately. It's not contained. You can't then take it to someone else and say, look at this pressure I've developed, because it's not staying in a ball in your hand. It's immediately dispersing, isn't it? With entropy.
Yeah.
Right, so it's not gas pressure with a container. It's not gas pressure at all. You've blown on something temporarily.
There is a container, though.
You're just talking through me. Every word I just said, didn't he? You just muttered and stuttered and stammered and talked through him after saying he wouldn't. So why on earth would I in any way think that you've listened to a word I've said when I've just listened to you stutter and stammer and talk through me?
Didn't stutter at all. Didn't stammer at all.
You talked through me.
You were talking. My goodness, I heard you talking while he was talking, and I'm not even on Discord.
I was under the impression that you stopped.
No, mate.
Like
you're
now.
Not containing pressure when you blow on your hand. It immediately dissipates.
Yeah. So
that's not gas pressure without a container.
On Earth, there is a container. Though, isn't there? Right.
It's not going to work, mate. It's not going to work. Every time I respond, you carry on talking while I try and respond to you. So this conversation's not a conversation. Because like right this second, you're doing exactly that again. So last chance before I start my live show, I'm just not going to tolerate this shit. While I talk, you listen. And if you can't bear that, then piss off. That's you talking through me again, isn't it, Fundy? That'll be him talking through me yet again. Right? No doubt. Mate, I am talking. Do you not understand? It's the 5th time I've told you. When I talk, you just need to listen, not babble through me incessantly. Do you understand?
Okay, can you tell me when you're finished so I can say my point now?
No! Are you so retarded that you don't know that when somebody is in mid-sentence that you don't need to be talking through them? Are you so stupid that you think that mid-sentence I'm going to say, mid-sentence I'm still talking? Because that's when you're interrupting me, you stupid idiot. You're now, you're interrupting me mid-sentence, and you think me telling you when I've finished is going to help when you keep interrupting me mid-sentence? Like now, you dumb shit. Get the fuck out of my hangout. You are so irritating. You pricks on the globe side without a point. You haven't developed gas pressure. You've blown on your hand. You think that's gas pressure without a container? What are you going to do? Go and show your mate? It's dissipated immediately. He won't listen to it or acknowledge. He'll talk through every word, and then when I try and get him to shut up, he'll ask me if I can say over when he's interrupting me mid-sentence. For that reason, he can sod off. Tired of these assholes. That's total asshole behaviour.
Yep. Anyway, let's continue on. So these 5 trucks showed up on the property as scheduled because they came a week earlier. And I said, yeah, you can come Wednesday and Thursday. So they should be here again today. And they're doing all this fiber optics. So I didn't know how much time I had with these guys. I just realized they were standing around waiting for their boss. So I just had the intuition, just go do an interview. Okay. And so when I did, there was no plan in my mind to do the top 3 other than start a conversation about the nature of the earth and why it's so hot on the internet. And the one guy was definitely familiar with some globetard arguments. And the other two guys were very open and were very investigative and so forth. So as you can see, the one guy kept wanting to say, well, what about this? And what about that? And he's the one who guided my conversation by what he said. So I wasn't even, and I guess that's the benefit of knowing the arguments backwards and forwards, because I'm not concerned which one it is or what order. Whatever he said, as you can tell, it just flowed. It just came out. So that's what happened.
You see, this is when you can tell if a person is genuine or not. The way they were responding, the way they were engaging.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome.
Unlike this guy just now on Discord, right?
He wants to retain some semblance of having gas pressure without a container, because that's the defeat of his argument that we've got a sky vacuum. So presumably he's got from some source or another, some idiot, that blowing on your hand, well, I blow on it and I feel it pressing on it. So that's gas pressure without a container. Genius. Yeah, but our argument is that you can't maintain gas pressure without a container. The gas would fill the space. It's called entropy. It's defined in the second law of thermodynamics. So you blow on your hand, and what do you know? It fills the availability of volume that it has. It disperses, it dissipates. You can't then take what's in your hand like a little golf ball and then go and measure the pressure in it and say, look, it's a higher pressure than the surrounding air around it. It isn't. It's immediately dissipated and filled the volume. That pressure just equalised with whatever the surrounding pressure was as soon as you stop blowing. So it's not maintaining gas pressure without a container. It's not even developing gas pressure without a container. You've got to have the gas pressure in the first instance.
But he did actually have a container, open container.
I was just getting there.
It would be the open wall container.
I was just getting there.
So it would disperse.
Yeah. So you've got to have a container in the first place, because where's he going to develop the gas pressure from? How is he breathing in and out that gas pressure to increase it temporarily with his lungs? By constricting his mouth. Well, he's got to have the gas pressure in the first place. How's he got that? Because that's actually our argument. Not how can you develop a pressure differential within a pressurized system. We've obviously already got pressure here. And can you create a differential in pressure? Yeah, you can force one. You can blow on your hand. Does that mean that you've developed gas pressure without a container? Well, we've got gas pressure here, and our argument is if the sky was a vacuum, an availability of volume for this gas that we're breathing to make a differential, to exist in the first place, how could that be if the sky was an availability of volume for the gas to fill? Rebuttal from moron who's going to talk through me consistently every time I speak. Blow on your hand! All right, well, how have we got gas in the first place if the sky is a vacuum? How are you managing to inhale gas pressure to then create a difference by constricting your mouth when blowing out, when the sky would have taken all the gas away from you? That's the bloody point. We're talking about the nature of reality, not some moron blowing on his hand.
It was so obvious. It's just comical.
A ham-handed attempt.
Love it.
It's a ham-handed attempt to get the delta of gas pressure in. So he's trying to argue for a gas pressure, the thing we're asking about, a gas pressure differential. Well, without gas pressure, you can't have a gas pressure differential. So where'd you get the gas pressure to blow on your hand? If the sky was a vacuum, it'll all fucked off into the sky vacuum, and you wouldn't be able to fill your lungs to blow. That's our point. Yeah, more consistent with the nature of reality and the argument about this lie that we're on a spinning ball in a vacuum. Moron. Now, that's worthy of interruption continually, isn't it? Yeah, because that destroys his fundy sky vacuum belief.
Yeah, they hang on to so many things that don't vet out once you apply some critical thought. I mean, like, if no one told you what they've told us, you would never think you're moving. You would always look at the sky and you'd say the sun and stars and moon are moving. You'd never say you were moving because you never have the motion. But they tell you it's happening, so you reify it and you believe it without thinking. This is what this guy did with gas pressure.
If you hear a lie enough, you're going to believe that lie.
Yeah, especially when the whole school system tells you all along, oh, no, you're moving. Oh, no, we're on the ball. Oh, water sticks. Oh, this and that. And so it's like, wait a minute, none of that happens in reality. I never would have came up with this crap myself. But, geez, sounds like from grade school to college, universities, everyone says this is what it is. Well, they're lying to you.
They're not. No. Stop. Let's get this clear. We've got to get this pegged down. They tell you it's a model. They tell you.
Yeah, I know where you're going. I agree with you.
Right. You know, who are you going to blame when they've told you, when you listen to them describe it? It's the same with Corona. We discussed this on yesterday's show. Right? And they're like, they lied to me. No, they haven't. They gave you some statistics. And in many instances, people are highlighting where they say how the statistics work. It's just poetry, right? The abstractions of mathematics. They're not lying. They're just telling you the information that they've got based on the poetry of the mathematics that they've got. That's not lying. Right? Now, if they've left out certain information because it wasn't newsworthy, they can justify it that way. I'm sure there's plenty of justifications. Me? I don't even have a TV! I don't care. I literally couldn't care less. When I found out the laws were changing, that I cared about. But as for the nonsense propaganda and the mathematics and the reifications and the abstractions, I couldn't care less. It's not real. And they haven't lied to you. They told you it was a model immediately. Now, you just didn't have, what's the word? The due diligence to look into what that meant. It's your fault. They didn't lie. You just didn't listen and look into the words that were being used. Now, some of the teachers, they might have specifically told you, no, it is just a ball for the sake of argument. Well, that's just one individual, right? That's not the actual teachings. You needed to just not take the one word of the one teacher that might have told you incorrectly, because that was a mistake. If somebody did tell you very specifically, no, you are stood on a spherical surface. Well, you won't find that in the rhetoric. They'll tell you all about the heliocentric model. They'll tell you about Earth curve geometry. They'll tell you about the story of how they got to be Earth curve geometry with the reification of a horizon into a physical sphere edge. They'll tell you all of it. That's what we're showing. And we're not showing our version of events, we're showing their version of events. Well, if that's the version of events that people have got, then you just had to look into it, and you would have thought otherwise. You'd have thought, oh, well, that's useful. Way of looking at the stars and philosophically considering how they might move in the patterns that they take. Well, that's useful if you want to understand the movement of the stars. Doesn't mean you're standing on a sphere, that's a reification fallacy. But if you were of a philosophical mind, you'd understand that. You might even be able to explain it to others, with the reification in mind, because you might be getting a paycheck for it, for all I know. But ultimately speaking, those of us who understood it was a reification fallacy recognise for what it is, and go, well, that's not necessarily a lie. They told you it was a model, hence we can point out it's a reification fallacy. They're not saying Earth is a sphere, you are stood on a curve. Only the morons at trench level do that. The ones that have fallen for the reification fallacy, the ones who are reifying it. But the actual rhetoric doesn't say that. You know, those morons we talk to are just stupid. But we show them their actual rhetoric. Just a philosophy. Just a thought experiment. Just a model. We don't live on models.
Well, Nathan, I just dropped a thing from ThoughtCo, and what it says about a model. Put it in Master B.
You want to read it and then I'll start the live show?
And yeah, I'll read it. Okay. A model is used in situations when it is known that the hypothesis has a limitation on its validity.
A hypothesis is a scientific prediction.
From me.
Yeah, so a hypothesis is a scientific prediction. When there's a limitation on a scientific prediction, they make a model. It's pseudoscience. Did you want to read any more of it, Paul? If not, I'm going to start the live show. I'm a little bit late already.
No, that's it. That's that one sentence is all, actually.
Cool. Let's get going. Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live. There's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. And one last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now, we are joined by 10th Man, Paul Hall, Arwin, Flatzoid, and a whole bunch of people in Discord. So welcome one and all.
Good afternoon.
Hey.
Good morning.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. Any signs of a physical, geometric sphere edge horizon, formerly known as the curve of the Earth?
Not from Mesquite, Nevada.
Oh, geometric horizon, where art thou? When we cannot see thee.
Owen's been on top form the last few weeks, it's got to be said.
That was good.
Well, the paradox thing is going to last at least 6 months, Arwin. You'll get kudos for that for a long time. Speaking of the paradox, any evidence of the R value, Earth radius?
No, normies don't even know where it is.
Yeah. Now, everything that's supposed to be proving a radius in some way, like even when people say, oh, GPS proves it. No. GPS actually uses a very extensive and complete Euclidean geometrical database. So,
Big shout out to Brian.
So plane geometry.
Yeah, basically. You can assume a tangent plane, though, when you're doing geodetic surveying. You can say, I assume, based on the WGS84 for the sake of argument, that my position on the surface of the Earth is thus. That is my tangent point. It's my point at the top of the radius when I assume a zenith that moves to the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth. And from there, from my assumption onwards, I'm going to use a Euclidean principle to measure the actual ground. That would be to say it's flat. So beyond their assumption of a tangent...
But how does that...
Go on.
But how does that work? You already said you have a tangent, and that's already assuming you have a radius.
Yeah, exactly. The thing that Craig, the Flat Earth guy, fell foul of. You know, asked him if they were measuring a tangent plane. He dodged the question about 5 times, and then later declared that they're measuring a tangent. I.e. assuming a curved surface beneath a straight line, the tangent point. That is to beg the question of a spherical Earth. Moving on. Any scientific evidence of gravity?
oh dear.
There's actually no evidence for gravity.
Well, wait a minute. What's gravity? What is it? What thing are you talking to speak of?
There's a man who knows the right question to ask.
It's a renaming of the relative density theory, and then basically an initiative to mind experiment some details about actual relative density out of it, and then then the whole heliocentric fantasy starts and all that.
Yes, correct, Owen. Taking relative density, calling it specific gravity, and adding a G to it.
Yeah. So no scientific evidence.
Yeah, it does lead people to make some pretty silly assertions, though. Like, gas go down, go boom boom, like bouncy balls in a fish tank.
Yeah.
What?
Very
So
special.
I'm still waiting for those 2,000 mile an hour bouncy balls. I'm still waiting.
Any
I'm
single...
still waiting to see smoke fall.
Smoke go down, go boom boom. Yeah, everyone's got to act like Spider-Man when the house sets on fire. Get on the roof, man. That's where it's going to be at. No smoke at the top, not on the roof, sorry. On your ceiling. That's what they would assert, right? Gas go down, go boom, boom, 9.8 meters per second, right? No. Stuff goes up as well. Maybe assume buoyancy, just beg the question all over again with gravity. Moving on. Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
No. But I think some of them are spending some time on writing papers on how to debate a flat earther.
Yeah, we covered that yesterday. Yesterday's show and the show before it were both epic, really good shows. I listened both back on the second channel. Subscribe today, Nathan Oakley channel, where you'll get the Uncut and After show a couple of days after it actually gets recorded. If you're a member, you get it immediately, so become a Nathan Oakley member today if you want to keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate on your own schedule. Anyway.
Yeah.
That was what was covered,
shows,
right?
And
Space.com.
Oh, sorry.
No, I'm saying that. You go on. I'm saying yes, that's what was covered on yesterday's show. We covered the Space.com, how to debate a flat earther, and it starts at the horizon, right, Arwin? On you go.
Yeah, it pretty much does. But they take a lot of time getting to that point and then thinking it's this massive reveal. That's how it's presented. But I watched a very late night stream yesterday from Rodrigo Ferrari Nunes, who went through it for like 3 hours, like the entire thing, and dragging him some other pieces. And it is just astounding how much time they spent in basically trying to spin doctor the reader through it all in this just childlike suspense of disbelief. Like, oh yeah, we're in control. Oh, look at this. We're sounding so smart. And then just having only disproven arguments. Like that, all things that are just like 5 years out of date eventually when the parlor trick is ended. It's
hey, Brian,
ridiculous.
You got a shout out a minute ago when we were talking about tangent planes.
What?
Hey Nathan, Hey, how are things here, bro?
Hey Ryan.
And
I guess, Brian, you started your own business, your own airline company, the Tangent Planes.
Yeah, the Tangent Planes. Sounds like a bad band. Don't it?
Well, let me just bring clarity. So while it had been explained to me on numerous occasions, it was Brian that was concise enough to make it clear what I just explained 2 minutes ago. You take your point on a piece of Earth that you're standing upon, and then take a model, either Earth-centered, Earth-fixed, or WGS-84, it doesn't really matter, one that assumes a spherical surface or a squashed... Anyway, let's not get into that. That's a tangent. Anyway, God, why did I have to use that word? That's a deviation from the subject. We'll get on to tangents in a minute. But Brian made it clear that when they assume that they've got a zenith, when you're standing on your bit of ground, moving to the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth, and you say, well, my zenith is here, therefore I'm pointing to the centre at this angle, that's going to be the point that I assume I'm stood on a tangent plane. Now, the tangent bit is their assumption that they're pointing with their zenith to the presupposed centre, and if you're looking at the view that I've got on screen for the audience, if we're up here somewhere in England, when the other half was actually in place, then down here somewhere you could potentially be, I don't know, in South America or wherever, and you're going to assume that you're antipodal to where I am and your zenith points to here. But from that point on, you then assess the land that you're actually surveying as a plane with Euclidean principles. Anyway, that was my leading view, Brian.
Do you want me to say something else, Ash?
Or just bathe in the glory of excellence that is your concise explanation for this?
Yeah, no, you know what it is? It's such a simple thing that, and the ballers make it a complicated issue with the way they try and explain it, because they don't obviously can't understand it because they're thinking it really is the case. When they say reciprocal zenith angles, it's like, it sounds like, oh no, so kind of overwhelming to people. But it's just a mathematical pre-assumption. That's all it is. If you pre-assume where you are that there's a zenith above you going into the centre of a sphere of a particular size, the same is happening to me here. We both pre-assume these things. We can mathematically work out that these angles that the zeniths are at a different angle, that they're not parallel. That's all it is, isn't it?
Yeah, so you assume that I start at point A, and I say ionosphere, I'm here, and my zenith points to the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth, like the map says it does in this model or datum. And then over there, 100 miles up in Scotland, he's pointing different towards the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth. He's further over the curve. And therefore, the line between me and him isn't a parallel. It's not horizontal. It's curving between the two of us. That's why we've got different presupposed zenith points, pointing towards different angles when assumed that you're pointing towards a spherical Earth from the top of your head going down to the ground. But they're just assuming that. You know, it doesn't actually do anything other than leave tards that we debate with to say horizontal's curved or straight lines are bent. You know, just double speak that. When you hear it from an outside point of view, you just laugh. But if you're a normie, you might hear that and go, how does that make sense? Surely it must make sense. Well, no, just your surveying process assumes a sphere, and therefore the 2 points between them must be curving, even though you're going to be measuring them flat.
Nathan, did you hear Brian's?
So 1 second, Tent. I just want to finish off on what Nathan said. Sorry about this. The worst part about it is that if I was in Scotland, let's say, and you were in London, let's say there's 200 miles between us or something like that, then we do the exact same thing. So we both pre-assume that our zeniths are going to the centre of a sphere with a radius of 3,959 miles. Then mathematically, we'll believe that our zeniths are divergent. But we then, around these zeniths, if we're both surveying, we then will create a 4-quadrant Cartesian coordinate system. And then for us to meet in the middle, we would create other Cartesian coordinate systems to meet between those two. And they all have to work on a flat plane. So we'd be working on a total flat plane with things, with a coordinate system that cannot work in any other way. It cannot work on anything other than a flat plane. It's designed that way. It cannot work on a constantly curving surface. It has to work. It's a grid system. It can every part of each one has to be the same dimensions. So there's no way for it to work on anything else but a flat plane.
Yeah, but the way they get it,
we'll still create all these and still say, the zeniths are divergent.
Exactly, it's the zenith. So as soon as they move over to the next grid, they start by saying, my zenith is now pointing to this point on the presupposed spherical Earth. Now let's map out the flat plane next to the lawn we just surveyed, and it's all just flat. But ultimately, each time they move over one square, they presuppose that they're pointing at a different angle towards the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth, based on a datum that they look at, and they say, we're supposed to be here based on where the datum says we are. And that point on the datum points to the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth, thusly. However, now let's move forward and measure how flat it is, assuming it's a plane.
Yeah. It's another paradox, isn't it? Because you're surveying it flat and presuming it's curved. So it is another paradox. Yeah. Sorry, Tent, about that.
Yeah, and it leaves them.
Say you
go on,
that,
just round that out, and then you can go 10th. Hold on. It leaves them making those paradoxical assertions. Straight lines are bent, and they literally will say that. Go ahead, 10th.
Yeah, Brian put up a video of one of the ballers admitting how GPS works, and just pretty much said everything Brian said. Remember that one?
I don't.
Oh yeah, Jesse Kozlowski. Yeah, the surveyor.
Yeah. Have you played that, Nathan? You ought to play it.
We'll get Brian to talk us through it. It's probably a bit better as he reminisces. Should we do the violins? Woo! Woo!
Well, JC and Jay keep running away from me, though.
They did the same with me. They just do that with everybody. You know, that's what they do. They just want to get you onto somewhere like Jose's and then have Jose mute you while they spew out a lot of nonsense. You don't get the reply, and then, you know, it's nonsense. But no, what it is, I just took an audio from Jesse Kozlowski did a presentation on Jose's going back a couple of months ago now. And he admits in that, he says it, that GPS, the native coordinates coming out of a GPS unit is Cartesian. So it's a box style system which uses a rectangular system within it for coordinates finding or whatever. But it's a box style system. Like he says it. He says it's not latitude and longitude. That's a conversion that happens afterwards. But I just took that bit of audio and I just looped it over and over, and I put some diagrams and stuff on the screen to go with it, just for people to see exactly what he's talking about.
Can you stick a link in Master B or wherever?
So yeah, I'll do it now. I'll throw in the link there in a moment. Yeah.
Perfect. While you're digging that out, I'll rattle through a few more housekeeping questions. Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
No, another reification of some thought experiment.
Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields? I know I've already had that one, hasn't I? Any evidence you can have gas pressure without the necessary antecedent of a container to press upon?
I'd like to see them try.
Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
Not in Nottingham. Afternoon, guys.
Hey!
Hey,
Hey, Adam.
hey, Adam.
Of course, it's a Thursday.
Yeah.
What time is it? 2 o'clock. You got a glass of wine yet?
No, I'm having a coffee first, Nathan, but I will be doing later, yeah.
Fair enough. You can help us out with the last housekeeping question. I think it's any evidence of the distance to the sun?
Nope.
Nope. Right,
Nope,
Brian,
nope.
how are you getting on? He's searching through his own stuff now. You can't tell me because he's on mute looking through it. So I won't disturb him. Hopefully he'll post it in a second and then we'll discuss it.
When I got no chocolate here today.
Doesn't look like it, does it?
No, I'm just looking there. Oh, well, I'll wait. Hurry up if you're listening, chocolate. I've got you some good news. But I'll save it till he's here.
Fair enough. There we go. Right on.
Yeah, it's in Master B in it.
Perfect, perfect.
Operates in a 3D Cartesian coordinate system. So here's the thing I wanted to explain. GPS operates in a 3D Cartesian coordinate system. It is not latitude and longitude. That latitude and longitude comes from a conversion from that box style system. That's the native coordinates coming out of a GPS system. So here's the thing I wanted to explain. GPS operates in a 3D Cartesian coordinate system. It is not latitude and longitude. That latitude and longitude comes from a conversion from that box style system. That's the native coordinates coming out of a GPS system. A 3D Cartesian coordinate system.
Epic. Thank you for sharing it. I'll put the link to it in the chat, so hopefully a few people will go and bung you a subscribe. I've been unsubscribed to both 10th Man and you, Brian. Lovely. Means I get to circle it with a red button and show that I'm clicking on it, though, and that action will hopefully encourage others to do the same for both you and 10th Man.
Thank you.
Sub now.
Nathan.
Well, he pretty much admits that all their GPS works off of a flat plane, and then they have to convert it, refi it into a sphere somehow.
It's not just GPS. All supposed satellites, let's say all supposed all supposed satellite systems, all coordinate systems, which involves maps also, any kind of military maps, all these kind of things, they all use Cartesian coordinates. They all have to use Cartesian coordinates. Airplanes, aerospace use Cartesian coordinates. Like we would say, if we were using the XYZ system, X would be east on the ground, Y would be north, and Z is always zenith, but Z is up. But for airplanes, X is north, X is north and Z is Y.
Using triangulation.
No, no, it's not that. It's not that they're not using triangulation. One second, just let me explain this a second to the audience. On the ground, the XYZ system, right? X is to our east, Y is to our north, and Z is above us, right? With aerospace, they have to change that around so they don't make any mistakes. So there's no confusion. So they have X, which would be to our east. If you're in aerospace, it's to the north. Y is their east, and zenith is down. So we have east, north, up would be ground-based Cartesian coordinate systems, whereas their ones is north, east, down would be the aerospace Cartesian coordinate systems. So they're all using Cartesian coordinates, all of them. They never don't use Cartesian coordinates.
So for the visual benefit,
navigation, military, aerospace, surveying, everything is Cartesian.
But for the benefit of explanation for the audience, so when this is being described with a box-based system, the presupposition that you've got a zenith to the centre would leave you with a disco ball, lots of little flat squares. However, that's not how the actual system lays itself out. It's only the assumption of the surveyor based on the datum, and the datum's already sort of done and dusted. So the actual surveying is, as Brian's describing, this box system. But the presupposition would leave you with a disco ball, right, Brian? Shout out to Retro Bill. Go ahead, Brian, and then I'll shout it out when you're done.
Brian, can I just clarify, just finish up? So are you saying that they're using triangulation to calculate it on a standard Euclidean bit of geometry? So they use that, and then they calculate your position from there, and then the computer program in the GPS then plots that into a globe model. But what it doesn't do is calculate in a non-Euclidean way.
No, it's the other way around. Brian's dropping in and out, so I think he's got an issue. You start by assuming, based on a datum that's already set, where your position is before the surveying even begins. So you're not figuring out where you are, you're telling yourself where you are based on your presupposition of zenith that goes to the centre based on the datum that you look at. Then you start your survey.
No, I was just on about just the GPS system, just in how it's calculating. It's calculating flat. It's not calculating, so it's not taking the pings and using those within a sphere map. It's taking the calculations from the pings on a flat map, calculating the position, and then re-overlaying that calculated flat position onto a sphere.
Is that right, Brian?
Yeah, and give you and then therefore translate it to longitude and latitude.
I missed some of that because my audio went. I had to drop 3 times. But I think what Adam was talking about is the conversion from Cartesian to longitude and latitude. Yeah.
Yeah. So So the conversion occurs after calculation, after measurements of position. Measurements of position are done on a flat plane, calculated from the pings, and then from that position that's generated on a flat map, they then reconvert that into a ball with longitudes and latitudes based on relative position, relative conversion points, not actual calculated on the ball. Was it called?
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct. No, I didn't know if we were finished or not. Sorry. I cut in there a second ago. I thought you were finished. No, that's exactly what they do, because what they do, let's just say me and Adam are both surveying, and we're using what's known as total stations. Total stations are like an advanced version of a theodolite. And they can do different things. I won't go into all the details. But one of the things they do is they automatically put the coordinates of where you are using the zenith into what's known as polar and then Cartesian coordinates. Now, polar are flat earth only as well. If you want to use polar coordinates, they're flat earth only. They actually use basically a box type system, but they use angles, but they're only a 2D system, a 2-dimensional system. So then when they get their elevations and stuff, they convert the whole lot to, the coordinates are given in Cartesian. Now, a lot of people, especially on the ball side, don't realize that polar are actually flat earth only as well. They don't get that. They don't understand polar coordinates. They mix them up with what's known as spherical coordinates, because they use a similar system for that. But all the spherical coordinates have been taken from the center of the earth in their model, the center of their belief. Whereas polar is actual coordinates taken. It's just basically all polar coordinates is, let's say Adam is there with his total station. He's taking an angle to a place, and that's just an angle. And then once you have that angle and the distance that it's going in, with the total station, you have what's known as an EDM, I think it is, where they can through sound, I think it is, that they it's like a radar. They can tell what distance someone or something is from them.
Yes, it's right.
Right.
Radio waves.
Radio waves, yes, right, radio waves. So they So they take an angle. Let's say Adam takes an angle to his right at, let's say, 32 degrees, and it's something that's, let's just say, I don't know, whatever distance away, 500 meters, and then he has that point away from him, from where he is his zenith, and he has that point at that angle away from him. And then when they start taking elevations, they then take that point and turn that into a Cartesian coordinate system. Like they basically converts it to a Cartesian coordinate system within the total station. I won't go into all the details about it, but it always starts with polar and Cartesian with total stations, always. And what it is then, I'm doing the same thing at a distance from Adam, and then the data from both those total stations is put into a computer unit or a data collection unit. And then once all the data is collected, then all that data is then mathematically being converted to sphere. So what happens is we get loads of, it's like there's a flat earth map, not of the oceans, but of the lands that are being surveyed, made all the time. But they keep on converting it to geographical, which is spherical, latitude and longitude. So if they weren't converting it to latitude and longitude, then all our coordinates would always be flat earth. It's only the conversion that takes it away from flat earth. You know, so that's what they do. But because they do this in sections all the time, because surveying is always done in sections, they don't just survey the whole world at one time. So what they do then is they took all these conversions and they take all the conversions and they make a globe map out of it. They originally converted to the AE map, or some flattening of an ellipsoid, a flattening of the WGS 84 or the NGS 80 or something. They just make it's just the AE map, the one that's on, for people that don't know what I'm on about, the one that's on the United Nations flag. Yeah, and that's basically what they work off then. They don't even work, when they're using coordinates, they often have to go away from the actual spherical and come back to the AE map just to use latitude and longitude. And then they have to go back to Cartesian when they use it. Like the likes of Google Earth has to go back to Cartesian, but it doesn't show it that it's doing it. Because you get a position in Google Earth, you open up Google Earth, you hover your mouse over something, your pointer over something, it gives you your latitude and longitude, but it also gives you your elevation. But you can't get elevation with latitude and longitude. That's a two-dimensional system that's taken off of the people looking up in the sky at the stars. It's two-dimensional. So they have to then go back. Like Google Earth is constantly going back and getting its elevation from the original Cartesian coordinate systems. If you know what I mean. That's all. So it all has to go revert, but they just hide that it's all reverting. You know, they can't do it. Latitude and longitude is useless on its own.
Just a quick shout out to Retro Bill. He says, fruitful discussion this week on FE debate, worth every penny. Thank you very much indeed for your support, Retro Bill. Really appreciate it. And thank you, Brian, for detailing this.
Yeah, I have even more. Something that, just while we're on it, I just cut in on Ted. I'm sorry, Ted. I know it's the second time I've done it today.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. This is the last time today I'll do it. Something Flatside said earlier. He said, are they not using triangulation? All, just for people to know it, all computers, smartphones, tablets, right, iPads, whatever, none of them are GPS, right? They all work off of cell towers. All your supposed GPS coordinates are coming from cell towers. They're all being triangulated by cell towers. GPS units work off of, right, what's known as the core system. There's a system put in place for surveyors who are using this GPS type system. I think before anyone else was. It was after military they were using it. And this core system basically is a system of towers that just give coordinates to surveyors. So if you've got a GPS unit, whether it be in a vehicle or a GPS phone or whatever, then you will be getting a lot of your coordinates from the core system, which is just towers again, just land towers again. So they say GPS is trilateration, which is basically rather than there's 3 locations pinpointing you, there's 4 and more pinpointing you, and they're using microwaves rather than let's say high frequency as opposed to low frequency waves or whatever, or medium frequency. But like there's no basically you go as far as you can to find out the origins of these frequencies, and you get as far as the core system, and you can't get past that. You know, where's the core system getting their frequencies from? You know, we know they're not getting them from space. So basically, it's just a big load of triangulation and trilateration, and they make it sound like it's from satellites in space.
Can you spell it? Because, no offense, your Irish accent. The what system?
Oh, sorry, cores, C-O-R-S, core system. People can research that. Surveying cores, C-O-R-S. C for cat, O for ordinary, R for I don't know, right, and S for snake.
Perfect.
You struggled on what to give an R for.
Yeah, I couldn't take that with R.
R for radius. Right, another quick shout out.
From Ireland.
Just another quick shout out to Rodney B. I make topo maps using GPS. Brian is correct. Wow, thank you very much for the super chat. I'm very informative. Really appreciate it, Rodney B.
So
was
Brian,
it Adam who was last? Oh, we've been
Don't
waiting for
drag
10th
me
man for
into
ages, though, eh? 10th, go ahead.
Yeah, Adam brought up a point with non-Euclidean. Chocolate showed us a homework assignment the other day for a child who was doing homework on the internet, and it talked about an orange peel. And when you take the orange peel out, you can't make it flat, but when you put it back together, it's a ball. So this non-Euclidean conversion is the opposite of that orange peel example, which was ridiculous because they're trying to say it the opposite way. So can you touch bases on that? So since they get everything off of a Cartesian coordinate system, right, the grid system, flat, plane, everything, they're the ones making it into an orange peel. And to do that, they have to jump from Euclidean and come up with some other geometry. So they say it's, non-Euclidean. Am I right there?
I think he's asking you, Brian. I've actually got those questions that were posed to this. I think it was in like a Skype education session or something like that, and the kid just literally took pictures of it. Was it you, Brian? No, it was Chocolate, wasn't it? Yes, it was Chocolate that sent this message. But I've got that on screen for the audience if you want to answer that last question, Brian, from 10th.
Who dropped?
Oh, is he gone? He's got internet issues at the minute.
Well, it would seem like that's what they're doing, obviously, because if they're using Euclidean geometry with the Cartesian and plane and tangent, but then they have to convert it, just like Kozlowski said, longitude, latitude is an afterthought, but we don't get it that way. We don't get it from a ball. We get it from a flat surface, and then we have to convert it. Well, they can't convert it using Euclidean because you don't have straight lines, you don't have parallel lines anymore. So it has to go to some other geometry.
Yeah, well, you see, their problem is as soon as they make the triangle more than 180 degrees, then they've already thrown Euclidean away. They do that.
Right. Was that your point, Adam, when you asked that non-Euclidean question?
Well, I was trying to ascertain how it's done. So from what I heard there, the way in which the system works is it assumes a flat plane to take the measurements. It takes the measurements and then calculates position on a flat plane. And then, to use your orange analogy, after they've taken that flat piece of paper, they then do what they do. And it's kind of the opposite of the orange to me, because you're going to get crinkles. They then do what they always do, which is just wrap that flat map around the ball shape. So they then transfer the relative positions into the non-Euclidean. But none of it is measured or calculated initially in that system. It's only done afterwards, and then that includes the conversions to longitude and latitude, which are
It's already preset.
Well, just be specific, Adam. Conversions from what to what?
So conversions from the flat map and the flat calculations and the flat measurements to then give you a position on the flat map and then take that position on the flat map and convert it to its relative position on the ball.
So to summarise, you're saying the ball isn't measured, it's merely converted, and it's converted from flat, correct?
Yeah. Not
Says
just
it
the
all.
flat map, but calculations and measurements that are assumed to be taken by the computer on a flat plane. Fundamentally, that's what I'm hearing, that the computer's processing that initial data on in a flat world.
Okay, so let's give the full discussion summary. So you go from, you're in your car with your sat nav, it gives you a position based on flat box coordinates, and the transmission hasn't come from a global positioning system, it's come from towers. However, when it gives you a longitude and latitude line in little numbers at the bottom right hand corner, that's a conversion that's been done after the measurements, which have been taken from a flat plane in the first instance, and then at some stage for other maps converted into a sphere. But to give you those numbers, it's just taken the original flat measurements, flat maps, flat box construction for the system that's laid out on the flat plane, and then giving you some numbers that relate to a sphere.
That was my understanding of what Brian said. He's back. So is that right, Brian?
Hopefully you heard the summary. You're still there, Brian?
Hey, yeah, sorry, I'm having some sound and phone problems. Yeah, that's exactly it. That is. I came in just as you said, talking about getting your coordinates in your car. Yeah, that's it. That's the basics of it. They want to complicate it, but that's what it is.
Well, I'm glad you corrected me, Adam, because I was misunderstanding how he's translating this in terms of the GPS system, because I was just listening to his surveying answer. But yeah, you correctly identified that no, he's not identifying that in terms of how they come to the measurements, but how they apply them in terms of people's understanding of what they see on their screen in a car sat nav or on a phone, for the sake of argument, right?
Yeah, that was what I was trying to see if that's what Brian was saying, which is fundamentally brilliant. The calculations are flat.
Shout out to M for just giving me money in the super chat. Thank you very much indeed. Really appreciate it. And I reiterate what I don't know about the whole week, but certainly Tuesday, Wednesday, and today's show have been really, really good content-packed shows. You know, and in all of them, I think even if it's been like a quick cursory last question, we've got all housekeeping questions in the last 3 days as well. So I don't know. I've been very pleased. Again, plugged for myself. Sorry to interrupt everybody's nice flow of flat Earth information. If you're a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member, check out yesterday's show. There was an off-topic, not on flat Earth discussion in the after show. But also, if you want to keep up to date with the flat Earth debate, the shows, the after shows and pre-shows, go out immediately after the recordings are finished. Now, today's pre-show was 10th Man's video. Now, you can just go and see this. I did post the link at the beginning of the live show, so if you scroll back through the chat, once it's rendered, you'll find the link to 10th Man's video that we played in full in the pre-show and then reacted to it afterwards. But it was brilliant. At one point, I put my camera on to show the goosebumps I had as I was listening to him. So it was truly, truly excellent. But like I say, for the last 3 days, all of the shows have been really good. Obviously, I do say so myself, but nevertheless, you know, I'm not going to be the first to say when there has been a series of really good shows. So hopefully, people are watching them. Shout out to everyone in the live audience. Sorry to disturb the flow. But yeah, smash the super chat, become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member.
Oh, you might have 3 more new members after a little follow up.
I doubt it. I'm sure I might get a subscription out of one of them if I'm lucky.
Well, it all depends how I follow up.
The first, you know, you were Morpheus. you didn't exactly.
That's funny. Well, I mean, they gave me their phone numbers, so they gave me something that they normally wouldn't give unless they trusted someone. So, what's the next step? Hey, subscribe to this channel and follow what I follow, and we have something to talk about that'll be current. I mean, how hard is that?
Yeah, I don't know. Lower your expectations. Perhaps they are normies.
All right, let's take some fun bets. Adam, what do you think? You think I could get 2 out of 3 to join at the end of the day?
He wasn't here for the conversation, but feel free to have a random guess.
You'll have to fill me in on the details a little bit, Tom.
Well, what happened was I had workers on the property. They had a little lag in their work because their boss wasn't here. I was in that kind of mood of, I got to go talk to these people. So I said, hey, I have a YouTube channel and we're discussing the nature of the earth. Can I interview you? I won't say your names. I won't show any pictures of you. Just ask some basic questions. They all agreed. Went through the interview, lasted 12 minutes. At the end, they gave me their phone numbers. They wanted to see the material I've been looking at because they found it interesting, challenging. And I sent them last night Nathan's interview with Mitchell and Paul on the plane, that one that I did last week. And today I will send them the rendered version of their own interview. Obviously, I have a means of contact because I got their phone numbers. They trusted me, at least for that. So how hard could it be to get 2 out of 3 of them to subscribe to Nathan's show? What's the odds?
Oh, just as well. Yeah, I think you've got, if they're engaged and were genuine and they went to an interview, I think that's good odds. I thought you was more talking about getting them to renounce the ball. No. So that's a harder task, 2 out of 3, but I could recommend that for them and all. You know.
Well, they're at least challenging what they've been taught based on how they were responding. At least 2 of them were.
Yeah, while listening to it, I would say at least 2 of them should all probably join. One might.
All right, Nathan.
The other one.
I'll follow up and let you know.
Well, just make sure you let Spurs know.
The psychologist.
Well, just more of his. He can keep tabs on how many people have been converted. Me,
yeah, there you go.
Beyond the show content, you know, I'll shut up. I'll just cause offence. Shout out to Henrik, who also just gives me money in the super chat. Really appreciate your support. Thank you very much indeed.
Well, joining your show may not equal conversion, but it opens up their mind to different ways to view the earth.
I'm going to say nothing here, so there's going to be dead air, because all I'm going to do if I reply to this is cause offence.
I would stay away. I was being a little tongue in cheek with the renouncing, but conversion, I think, is an odd phrase in of itself. It's not one that sits comfortably with me anyway. I think the best I ever hope, and well, you can hope for it, because we don't have an answer, and that's a lot of the trouble when you are talking to newbies, is they want a replacement paradigm. So the aim, certainly when I was on the van and that, is, and kind of the renaming is really if you can get them to see the faults in the ball model and become just globe deniers, I think that is sufficient, and somebody's on their own journey anyway, and hopefully that's the best way of coming to reality anyway. But yeah, get them as a globalist denier, I think, is sufficient for me.
Yeah, I think they all have to make their own decisions, but there's help along the way.
And to do that, all we've got to do is get them to honestly answer the housekeeping questions. You can't be anything other than a globe denier.
Well, I used the top 3 housekeeping questions without even order that I thought in advance. It was based on what they said and how I responded, and it just obviously I tried to stay in the top 3 anyway because they're strong, and gravity didn't even come up until after the recording. It was funny, it just came up later after we stopped talking. I thought they had to get to work and they kept talking, but
as you've been,
then I just handled.
You've been compared to Morpheus 10th, so do you remember the scene with the woman in the red dress?
Yes.
Can you remember how that scene starts?
They're walking down the street, and Neil turns around, and then next thing you know, an agent's attacking him.
That's how it ends. The scene starts with Morpheus explaining to Neo that everybody who's around him, now, just for a little interesting trivia fact, a lot of the people in that scene are twins. A lot of twins. If you look at it and pause it, you'll see. Nevertheless, he explains that most of the people who are in the system have no desire whatsoever to be woken up from the system. And not only that, they will fight vehemently to remain precisely as they are. That's how the scene starts.
Yeah, I do recall that now.
The question is, when we're talking about these people, the people that you interviewed in the pre-show, now I don't know them, but we'll go on the assumption that they are actually normies. They're not, considering themselves woke or bloody red or blue pill or whatever the bloody hell you're supposed to be if you're somehow not on, what's the other one that people use? Non-player character or player character, all these different terms that people use.
NPC.
Yeah. Well, it's just a contrasting. It's the same piss in a different bottle as far as I'm concerned. If you're going to call yourself a player character, because I'm involved, I'm enlightened to this. Oh, really? Well, how do you know that you're not just on the other side of a different coin? Well, chances are you are. You're buying into a different rhetoric, you're buying into a different system. Probably the same system, you just don't realise it. Anyway, that's the kind of message of The Matrix, if anybody doesn't realise that. He spends the entire movie trying to escape the system and then realises towards the end, although they hint at it when he starts in the real world, in quotes, using magical powers on the machines. Well, that's because he's not in the real world. He's escaped one paradigm and just out of the frying pan, into the fire, into the next paradigm. All right? And that's all I see the normies, not that I'm claiming to be a player character where they're not. I'm just saying they won't want to escape into some sort of freedom of thought or some perceived enlightenment. Right? And it was typified when Adam correctly pointed out, what do they want immediately? They want you to give them a new paradigm. Well, where's the new leader? What, you're saying I don't bow down to the sun anymore? It's not at the centre of my life? Well, what do I bow down to? That's what they say, right? Well, there is no hope for these people. I just laugh at them. And now there's going to be people who take offence to that. I don't care. I look at it and it just makes me laugh. The same with the current scenario. We're in 2020. I don't even have to name it, right? People know what's going on in 2020 when they look back on the history, however that may be written, right? Well, you look at your normie around you. Are you going to waste your breath when they're terrified? You can't help them. They want to be terrified, right? Well, you just have to laugh.
I agree.
Wanting to be terrified, or just how I see them and how I even see the NPC meme is these are all people that have been stuck too long in autopilot. Now, normally you can't do that as long, but society has almost basically been re-engineered to accommodate for people wanting to live on autopilot and not really think about it too deeply. And become stuck in it and they can't get out again. And that's what they really are afraid of. That's that fear, mysterious fear lurking around the corner.
Hey, Arvin, what's NPC? What's NPC, Arvin?
Non-player character.
Okay, thanks.
But it is, to me, more like an autopilot.
I know from my stats that hold on.
Consciously figure things out, so they're just going with whatever comes at hand.
I know from my stats I've got an older audience who may not get this reference right. So let's just break down what an NPC is. So non-player character, yes, that's right. Well, where's the reference from? Well, if you're in a computer game, there are two different types of interactions that you may have. Now, you may have an interaction with somebody who's actually got a mouse and keyboard in front of them. That would be a player character. Now, you also have interactions with programmed bots that can talk to you and you can interact with them, but ultimately they're just part of the process and the machine in the game. Those are non-player characters. Now, the insinuation is that there are people who are less woke that are in our reality non-player characters. They don't really have any involvement. They just go about their business as part of their routine. They're not aware of any of the things that are really going on around them. They're not woke enough, right? All this crap makes me cringe, I've got to be honest. But there we go. That's the breakdown.
They're just following the script.
That's why I'd like to refer to it rather as autopilot mode. Because those even NPC people could, under the right circumstances, if they really have no other choice, they can actually be forced to wake up. But yeah, as long as society just makes it very easy for them to keep on going on autopilot mode and not think critically about it and still feel good about yourself, they will do their best to keep that habit going. Because it is like that. It is basically hiding their intellect from themselves. They just go on the easy route.
I think they're called the Proles is it Proles in 1984, and Quantum Eraser calls them Joe Coffee, Betty Breadmaker, normies. That's what we're talking about. Just average Joe, normal. The guy who's watching his news, he goes to the bar on a Friday night, he watches his sports. Once every 6 months he goes to a live game. He might occasionally catch a concert with his wife. She might occasionally go out to gym. That's normalcy. You know, your average Joe knows what we're talking about when we talk about a normie. As opposed to somebody who would sit, what time is it? 3 o'clock on a Thursday afternoon, debating the nature of reality. And after the fact, like yesterday, discuss the reifications of mathematics in terms of the current news situation. That's not a normie, right? But that doesn't make us in any way enlightened. In fact, in many ways, recognising how much you don't know makes me feel a lot less enlightened. You know what I mean?
I was going to say that.
Sign that you're wisening up.
It's not a lifting above it. It's a stepping away from it. So you don't know anymore, as you say. I always think of it more like kind of institutionalized prisoners, and that's the control they've got on us. We are institutionalized. We don't want to step out of it because it is uncomfortable when you step out there. You do have that shock. You don't know anything. That's not a comfortable feeling for anybody's psyche to have to admit. Where you had a worldview, as horrible as it is, it was comfortable because you thought it was true. To step outside of that psychologically is uncomfortable, and that's that process that you see the ballers fighting with. That's why they don't want to. No one wants to be a flat earther, do they? It's not a great thing. You just, once you are honest with yourself, then you are left with having to debate on a Thursday afternoon.
Hey, Adam, you said something interesting. They want something immediately, right? To replace what's happening right in front of their eyes or what they're contemplating. And a sure sign of that is the trench people say, all right, show me a flat earth working model. They just want another model.
Yeah, they want to replace an existing paradigm with a new paradigm. You know, it's a very different reaction, and this is something I can say without doubt, that there is two different polar opposite attitudes when people come to this subject. One will be, wow, man, isn't that exciting? I don't know anything about the sky. I wonder what it is. You know, kind of uplifted. There's a whole world of possibilities out there now. That's exciting. And then there's the other people who, oh my God, we don't know what the sky is. Oh, what am I going to do? Well, I must blame someone. You know, for being lied to.
It's terrible. Now they suddenly have to figure something out. They can't just be told what it is anymore. And they get really outraged because I want to just be told what it is.
Yeah, people who want to go to NASA.
Now.
Pick it, NASA saying, tell us what it really is.
Don't know whether
some people want to fight it. Yes.
At the first onset, whether it is a reality of the subconscious kicking in to defend yourself, so you can stay institutionalized. But for me, the biggest part of that is the realization of a creator and the implications, as opposed to the material world we live in, where we're here and we're gone, so it doesn't matter what we do. That actually there's real implications for you once you start to digest the reality of the lie. Why is there? That to me is probably one of the biggest reasons to keep fighting and lying to yourself.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, the skeleton's in the closet, because even if you don't necessarily process it in the forefront of your mind, people aren't stupid. In the back of their mind, that logical connection is going to be made subconsciously. And they're not even going to want that to creep into the forefront of their mind. So they keep the forefront of their mind occupied by telling us we're idiots. And that relieves the pain and stops the onset of them recognising the consequences. And that there may be consequences for them. There may be the contemplation of an afterlife. If there's a creator, well, don't let that creep in. Right? No. It's all irrelevant. It's all meaningless. The skeletons in my closet, I can just forget about them. There's no consequences.
And they're only lying to themselves, though.
Because of the good old method on flat Earth ridicule, you know, they'll take that over the pain.
My neighbour, I don't ever do that, you know, trying to convert people or what they call. I don't like the term at all now. Flat smacking. I don't like that term at all. I don't do it myself. It's not something I kind of feel drawn to do.
I hate flat smack.
Sorry, Neil.
I said I hate that term, flat smack.
Yeah, I don't like it. I don't like it. Whatever it is about it, I just never liked the term. But yesterday I did it. Not intentionally. It was my neighbour. I was speaking to him. He started asking me about what I do and all the rest of it. We grew up, like, I know him my whole life, like. And I didn't go into all the nonsense about space or any rest of it. Like, people, if they're going to speak to somebody about this, there's no point in trying to debunk NASA and all this other stuff. Just keep it simple. I just told him, I knew he had been on an airplane. I knew he had a long haul flight more than one time. So I said, talk to him about airplanes. How can airplanes be doing this, if they're doing that? And he went, yeah. And I just said to him, I said, we have wind, we are breathing air, this is all pressurized. How do you have pressure without a container? Without a container. You know, I just kept it very simple. And he was like, yeah, and he was interested. And he wanted to know my YouTube channel. So I gave him my YouTube channel and Quantum Eraser's YouTube channel. I said, look at this one, Quantum Eraser's channel. I said he does good presentations. So, but you know, I don't try and push it on anyone or anything. So if someone's going to ask about it, I'll keep it simple.
Perfect. Quick shout out to Alexander for the super chat. Again, gives me a thumbs up. Thank you very much indeed. With that, I will say a huge, massive, enormous thank you, first and foremost, to both Discord and G Plus panels for making today's live show possible. If you are watching on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. As I say, if you're watching live, this is where we bid you farewell. Another massive thank you to all of you smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, and all that good stuff. Be sure to check out nathanoakley.com and the Flat Earth Debate Forum to keep up to date with the community debate. Once again, stay tuned if you're watching on either premiering stream. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!
Tape that you got, if I call it a tape, or digital recording. I mean, it's just, the loop is terrific. I mean,
says it all, doesn't it?
Well, he's confessing how fraudulent it is and thinking he's explaining how real it is. It's like, what?
Remember I said the message to you in bed saying gold, and just got gold one Saturday evening.
Yeah,
that was what I was talking about.
Yeah, I remember that. I do.
That's the exact clip I was talking about.
Well, I knew when we were talking what you were onto. That's why I called you and said, "Hey, we need to do something." And then you just ran with it after that, because I heard you say they take Cartesian and that whole ladder where you gave each rung of the ladder something until they got their globe. And I'm saying, man, the way you just said that, there's something there. You need to get on this and make it more tight. Remember, we went back and forth a few times on it, and man, what you came out with was brilliant. So kudos to you.
Thanks, man. Thanks. It's basically what they do is they start out with the pre-assumption of a globe with the radius, the pre-assumed radius value that creates their globe, and they then turn that into an ellipsoid and a geoid. The ellipsoid is just the WGS84 and oblate spheroid calculation. That's all it is. And I have it written from Jesse Kozlowski that it's that the WGS84 is a mathematical reference model. The ellipsoids are mathematical reference models, and the geoid is just mean sea level everywhere, and they just make an oblate spheroid out of it. And that's why when you look into what an ellipsoid is and a geoid is and their definitions, the geoid is called conceptual because they're not. It's not conceptual. It's just the making. This mean sea level is not conceptual, but the making of the oblate spheroid out of it is conceptual. Then you just localize these two things down to a point. They just basically localize it down to reality. Then they start surveying, make it all survey a flat plane. Then they convert it all back to their original pre-assumption with maths. So they start off with a crazy pre-assumption. They bring it down to reality, survey it all flat, then convert it back from reality mathematically to their pre-assumption. Sorry, QB, we're going to say something, right?
No, he's not here.
Yeah, because he's in the call here. He's in.
Yeah, he's on our panel.
Morning, boys.
Morning.
Hey, QB.
Hey.
Hi, QA.
I might just say, Nathan, just for people out there, if they ask about the coordinate systems, the Cartesian coordinate systems, and the conversion from that to the geographical coordinate systems, this is for flat earthers who don't really get it yet. They'll be told that any coordinate system can be converted to any other coordinate system. There's all different coordinate systems. Excuse me.
Like there's all different reference frames?
Yeah, but there's only one real one, and that's Cartesian.
Yeah, that's what's
Cartesian
actually being
and
measured.
polar.
The point is the measurements are being done in Cartesian, but the fact that they'll take a conversion discussed on the show and assume a zenith, presuppose a sphere Earth, then do measurements, they'll then convert it back. You can bet your bottom dollar your opponent's going to talk all about the converted numbers or the presuppositional numbers, as opposed to the measured numbers or the conversion process, right?
Yeah, what they do, and this is what Jesse Kozlowski will do if someone happens to question it, because he tried this nonsense with me, and I've heard him do it to other people on Jose's when I was listening to it. He'll start saying there's loads of different coordinate systems, and you can convert anything from any coordinate system to any coordinate system, and he'll be blasé about it and hand wave away the thing. But what he's not being honest about is the original coordinate systems have to be on a flat plane. They have to be polar and Cartesian. And that's and after that you can make anything you want with mathematics. You have the pre-assumptions will allow you to have spherical coordinate systems. You know what I mean? Different types of coordinate systems. He'll even equate the ECEF coordinate system. He'll even call that a spherical coordinate system when it's not. It's just a pre-assumption. Using Cartesian coordinates. What they'll actually even do is he'll even say that show the ECEF system as Cartesian coordinates because they call that Cartesian coordinates, but it's not. It just uses Cartesian coordinates within that system.
Yeah, the
system is based on pre-assumption.
Yeah, they've taken the Cartesian measurements to give them the datum that is known as Earth-centered, Earth-fixed. But obviously that's had a conversion process, but he's just going to describe that and use the words Cartesian when describing ECEF. But it's nothing to do with it. It's measured flat to give them that datum when they make a load of conversions. Well, then they're going to start with that, ignore the fact that it's been measured flat, not mention it, and then say you can convert anything into anything.
Yeah, exactly. Because it'll take away. Sorry, Kent. It'll take away it's taking away the emphasis on things having to be put into Cartesian coordinates. He'll say, there's all different coordinate systems, and you can convert one to another, blah blah blah, and it makes it all blasé. But that is taking away from the fact that things have to be laid out in Cartesian or polar coordinates. If you're going to do 3D, it has to be Cartesian. If you're going to do 2D, you're going to use polar if you want, and then Cartesian. But you can use Cartesian for 2D as well.
Right. Bottom line, it's
do you know
measured
what the biggest tell is?
Biggest tell. Go on.
Yeah, the biggest tell for this was when, and I still haven't bought my sextant yet, but I am researching it still. And when I talk to the navigators, this is the biggest tell. When you use the sextant, in order for it to work practically, you have to assume the Earth is motionless and the stars are moving. Now, why do they say that? That's what we're doing with the cart.
Because that's how it presents itself.
Exactly. But you see, it's a tell, because it's like they're telling us the Earth is moving. That's why the stars seem to be moving, but it's the Earth moving. But then for the instrument to work, you have to assume the Earth is a flat plane and the stars have a circuit and they're moving and they repeat themselves. And the constellations are always where they're supposed to be so that you can coordinate where you are at any given time, wherever you are, by that instrument called the sextant. So the actual practical use, you go back to a flat Earth sextant, but they sell it to you as the Earth is moving until you have to use the instrument. That's the biggest tell right there.
Yeah, but the rebuttal from them is it's just easier that way. Earth's still a sphere, though.
Well,
that's what they say.
It's well, you know, I know they say, and that's what I got as a rebuttal in an email from one of these guys who has a navigation YouTube channel. He says, well, it just works easier that way. And so, yeah, of course it works easier that way because that's the only way it works. Just like Cartesian is the grid system, and that's what you take, and then later get that orange peel and convert it into something. But you didn't start with the orange peel.
Yeah, I think it's one of the whole coordinate system thing is it's a bit daunting for people. I think it's actually very, very simple, but it's one of these things. It's a bit like the Coriolis effect. There's so much nonsense around it. People find it hard to learn what it actually is. You know, the Coriolis effect, for instance, is just a visual effect. It's very, very simple when it's broken down for somebody, but it seems complicated because the other side, all they ever do is make everything complicated. We make everything simplistic and show the reality of it, but they have to have everything complicated because their model involves all kinds of nonsense. So everything is a complicated mess on their model, with all these mysteries that nobody really knows about. You know,
is Flatsoid here?
Where are all the ballers?
Did Flatsoid go?
I think so.
Yeah, I think he's gone.
He said, like I said before, he used meters. He said it's 460 meters per second the Earth is moving. That's 1,500 feet at the equator, basically. Just a little bit over 1,500 feet per second. So here they're talking about Coriolis. And if you're going to shoot as a marksman, sniper, does that mean you can actually put to play this retarded presupposition that you got to aim right of your target if you're shooting, like if the Earth's moving west to east? Do you got to aim right of your target 1,500 feet because it takes your bullet a second to arrive at the target? That never happens. So you see, it's all of these things that never happen. Just like, you know, the tell, you know, you got to assume the Earth is flat for this instrument to work, but we know it isn't. Yeah, there's Coriolis, but we never adjust for it. And on and on.
Don't adjust for Coriolis. It's a visual effect. You don't adjust for a not actual deflection. So when they say we don't adjust for it, or we don't need to adjust for it, more correctly saying it in their rebuttal terms. I say that because I've actually put on the wiki GIF, and it has a little description. It's the most concise description there is. In the inertial frame of reference, upper part of the picture, the black ball moves in a straight line. However, the observer, red dot, who is standing on the rotating non-inertial frame of reference, lower part of the picture, sees the object following a curved path due to the Coriolis and centrifugal forces present in this frame. Or, to put it another way, it's seeming to curve as detailed in the upper picture. It's actually travelling straight, but because you're rotating underneath, it looks like it curves. Well, you don't account for that if the top picture is an aeroplane and it's travelling straight, but you're rotating underneath it. You look up and see the plane that is actually travelling straight seem to curve. That's Coriolis effect. So you look at the plane, travelling straight. Well, because it's travelling straight, it doesn't have to account for you seeing it seem to curve. You don't get a radio in from ground control. This is ground control. Man on the ground is watching you seem to curve. Please adjust your path. That doesn't happen because it's actually travelling in a straight path and only seeming to curve because it's claimed, in the case of Earth spinning, that you're rotating underneath the plane that's travelling straight. So the plane's not going to have to account for you seeing this not actual deflection. However, if that was the case, as is claimed, we are claimed to have a Coriolis deviation at 15 degrees an hour, then you seeing the plane seem to drift would mean you're turning underneath the plane, and that would shorten the flight if you're travelling west. For example, Charlotte from North Carolina to LA would take an hour and a half, not 4 hours, because Earth would be turning underneath for you to look up and see it seem to curve. I.e., for you to observe Coriolis effect, you'd have to be rotating underneath it. That's what Coriolis effect is. You observing something seem to curve when it's actually travelling straight. So to get to the point, if they rebut you with, well, the pilot in a powered plane, it's like, what's that got to do with it? The plane's travelling straight, I'm seeing it seem to curve. So the fact that it's powered's got sod all to do with me seeing it seem to curve. It's only seeming to curve. And he's definitely not going to have to correct for that. And having bloody engines isn't going to correct for me seeing it seem to curve because you claim I'm turning underneath it. And that would shorten flight times. We don't have 15 degrees an hour deviation as the Earth rotates underneath stuff in an inertial reference frame. The Globers just never add that onto the end of their statement. They just say 15 degrees an hour proves Earth spinning. What proves Earth spinning underneath an inertial reference frame so we see it seem to drift? Like you claim in the gyro and pendulum, seeming to drift because Earth's turning underneath it? Well, that would mean that planes would have flight time shortened when going west, because Earth's turning underneath them at 15 degrees an hour. They just don't give you the full claim. They just say 15 degrees an hour, like that proves something. Yeah, 15 degrees an hour as you claim Earth turns underneath stuff that's not attached to it. That doesn't happen. Flight times would be reduced if it did.
Well, I thought Beckham had skill.
Excuse me, sorry, Neil. Well said. We understand what it is better than they do. They never define Coriolis properly. They get in trouble because they have to say the Earth is rotating. And when you fire a bullet, then you have to account for that rotation. And they say that's the Coriolis effect on the bullet, which is not a proper definition of Coriolis. But they're stuck now, which means that after you fire that bullet and it leaves the barrel in 1 second, that target better be where that bullet's going to end up. And the bullet's going straight in what they're saying. So you got to aim away from your target if you're going to say there it's rotating, which is not Coriolis the way you explained it, but they're dead because they have to have the Earth turning. And they don't give it to anything other than footballs and bullets now, but it would have to apply to airplanes.
Yeah. The effect is you seeing the bullet seem to curve. It's not, it's going straight, as you correctly point out. But Earth's turning underneath it, moving the target. So you need to track the target so that when the bullet arrives, having had the target move underneath the bullet, because it's not attached to Earth, that's what they claim. Same with the football, Neil deGrasse Tyson. Earth, it's attached to the ball. They're all rotating together. Then the ball's kicked and leaves the rotating ball Earth. And from the stands, looks like it curves through the goal. So the goal is made because the Earth rotated under the ball, according to Neil deGrasse Tyson. Well, that's you seeing a not actual deflection because you're still turning underneath something that's not attached anymore. Like you'd see the apparent deflection of a plane because it's not attached anymore. And if they rebut you with, well, it's correcting it because it's got a motor, what, correcting me seeing it seem to drift? You don't correct for me seeing it seem to drift because it's a not actual deflection. It's me turning underneath the plane. But as soon as I point out that the effect is me turning underneath the plane, they say, no, because that doesn't happen. Debunking their assertion of 15 degrees an hour deviation as you rotate underneath stuff. Because we don't. We don't rotate under hot air balloons, aeroplanes, anything that's claimed to be in that inertial reference frame for any more than a split second.
Precisely.
They always have that. Go on, Neil, I'll go after you.
No, I have to change my name. I can't be named after Neil deGrasse Tyson. I'm gonna have to change it.
Go on, Brian.
Yeah, I just say that they always have to have more than, like, they never have a single definition for something. They always have to complicate everything. Like what Neil deGrasse Tyson said is that the Earth rotated underneath the ball, which allowed for the field goal to happen or whatever. But they'll also say this happens underneath snipers' bullets. Then they'll talk about having to adjust for Coriolis, or account for Coriolis in other ways that have nothing that's got to do with the inertial reference frame and not to do with the non-inertial reference frame. I can't remember the term they use, but it's like more than one definition. Basically, they never have just one definition for something. They have two and three definitions for things, and everything is a complicated mess. And it's never just the simplistic thing that it is. They always have to complicate it and make it into this thing that nobody understands. It's so advanced, hardly nobody could understand it. It's just a visual effect. You know
why they do that, right?
Well, I think some of it is down to they're just idiots. But the other side of it is that they have to, the people who are smart on their side have to complicate it to keep people away from the lie.
No, that's it. They take something that it's very simple. They're saying the Earth is turning, and they're saying the bullet has left the Earth's surface, and the Earth is turning underneath the bullet. Fine. How fast is the Earth turning where the sniper is shooting the bullet? Let's just say 1,000 miles per hour. Okay, how much of an adjustment must he make if it's 1,500 feet a second? Where does he have to aim? Well, they're dead because it doesn't work that way. So what they do is they complicate it because they got caught in their lie. The Earth is not turning, and you don't aim right of your target 1,500 feet, hoping your target gets there because the bullet left the surface of the Earth. So it's so stupid. All you got to do is ask them how they adjust for it at 1,000 miles per hour, which is 1,500 feet per second.
Yeah, and you'll have a situation where someone like Rumpus or Zanuck will come in to hang out like this, right? Especially this one, especially the FED. And the first thing they'll say is, after listening to some of this conversation, you don't understand Coriolis. You have no idea what you're talking about. And they'll go back to trying to complicate the matter again. And that's what they'll do, try and bring it back to some big complication. And it won't last very long in here, so they don't do it as much here. But they'll do it on other shows. They'll come in and say, you don't know what you're talking about, and you don't have a clue. You don't know. And this is the biggest one. You don't know anything about Coriolis, right?
Right.
Yeah, anything, as if you know nothing about it. And it's them who are wrong, but they know they are, but they have to complicate it and make the audience believe. Sorry, go on, I talk after you.
No, it's okay. But how do you catch a lying salesman? I mean, how do you catch a lying pseudoscientist? You ask good questions. What did QE say? I'm talking about the causes that make Coriolis happen. Give me the cause for Coriolis. Well, they have to go back to Earth turning. It's over right there.
Yeah. Well, for Earth-based Coriolis, it has to be Earth turn.
Right, but it's over right there.
Us being on that turning Earth.
Yeah, but you can't complicate it after that because it's back to Earth turning and an apparent deflection because you're on the non-inertial reference frame. Okay, so the thing's going straight, but because you're turning, it looks like it's curving. But the thing is going straight. That's it. That's in Wiki. That's everywhere. So they don't want to go back.
Perfect time for me to interject. So let's go back to Wiki. So I got that GIF that we had up on screen earlier from Wiki. Now, if you go and read down in Wiki, it'll explain how it's a fictitious force. That's what it'll detail. If I just show my screen so I can show you that it is the same location that I got the GIF and all of the text that I read out. However, next to it, after detailing that this force is a fictitious force because this line, i.e. a plane in my example, is travelling straight, and because you're not in the same reference frame, you're moving underneath it, it looks like it's not moving straight. Only looks like. But later, further down in the exact same Wikipedia entry, it says, Coriolis force is generally important. Why is it showing stuff on top of it? This force causes moving objects on the surface of the Earth to be deflected to the right. That's what it says. Now, it's just explained up here in the GIF that it's not an actual force. The object's travelling in a straight line and not being forced to do anything else. It also explained earlier on that it's a fictitious force, i.e. not forcing anything to do anything, it just seems to, because you're turning underneath. But literally in the same exact passage, it explains how it's forcing things on the rotating platform underneath to have a deflection. So it's complete doublespeak. You know, and you've got masses of nonsense that go along with it, when the concise, simple explanation is on the GIF next to it. Does it in about a paragraph. Yeah, we've got all this nonsense and contradiction. So they tell you how it's a fictitious force, i.e. only apparent, you don't actually have things curving, they just seem that way, to then tell you how it's actually forcing them to curve. So that's what the masses have got to, if they try and attempt to look into this Coriolis deflection. And then, like Brian's pointing out, the people in the trenches will come along and say, you don't understand Coriolis, and parrot off something that isn't Coriolis, backed by bloody wiki, when it's literally contradicting itself in the following paragraph.
Yes, Nathan, what the looks at? Go on, Neil, I'll go after you.
I don't think he said anything.
Oh, I thought Neil said something. Sorry.
It's happened so often that it's in your brain, like it's gonna happen. You're preempting it.
Yeah. Yeah. There's like maybe there's a little echo or something like that.
I'm leaving.
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, what Rumpus and Zanuck do is they used to come back. They used to come onto the show and shout that you don't understand and you don't know what the first thing about Coriolis, and then they try to back engineer it back to complicate it and take it away from. This is before the concise understanding of it was here, and they wouldn't do that when QE was in here, but they try it when Nathan some time back, when there wasn't everyone on the panel didn't have a concise understanding of it, right? But what they do now is they won't do that, but they'll come in and just shout, you don't understand, you don't know a first thing about it, and it just causes a ruckus, but they won't back up what they say. And this is the ploy they've been at for a good while now with flat earthers. They come in and say, you don't know anything about it, you don't know what you're talking about, and it's a pure condescending tone and a dismissal of the person. But then they don't, and they get away with this all the time on their own channels, on like Jose's and all this. They don't actually back up what they're saying. They don't go, and this is the reason why you don't understand A, B, C, D. You're wrong about this, you're wrong about that. They don't do any of that. It's just come in and a big statement that you don't understand, you don't know what you're talking about, you don't know the first thing about it, and just hand wave the person from what they're saying away. But at one time they used to be able to complicate it backwards, but now they can't because we understand it better. But like the Coriolis effect is a good example. But now they just come in and shout you don't understand and just hand wave dismiss you and what you're saying.
I've got another example of it. So again, is everybody on the same page? They understand that the object's travelling straight, not curving, and only seems to curve because you're turning underneath, right? Not actual deflection.
Yep.
Yeah? Only seems to be deflecting. Everyone's on the same page. You then go to second entry on a wiki search for Coriolis effect, a description of the Coriolis effect and how it affects weather over the UK. So straight away, they're describing how it's going to be an effect on the weather. Whereas Coriolis effect, as this is titled by Met Office, is a not actual force, an apparent deviation, something that's not actually deviating. But they're going to tell you how it affects the weather. And then it goes on to say, what is the Coriolis effect, ? And then they tell you what the Coriolis effect isn't, because they describe it completely incorrectly. The Earth's rotation means we experience an apparent force. Now, an apparent force is a not actual force, just for clarity, known as the Coriolis force. This deflects the direction of wind to the right in the northern hemisphere. So it's a not actual force that's moving wind. No, it's a deflection that you see of something travelling straight that only seems to curve. Yet the Met Office is literally telling you total lies about what Coriolis effect is. This isn't Coriolis effect. If it's moving wind in an actual direction, well, that's an actual spin direction that you can observe and measure. But Coriolis effect is a not actual deflection, so absolutely nothing to do with weather. But yet they'll lie to you if you do a cursory search on Google. The Met Office will tell you total nonsense, and in the next sentence we experience apparent force. Well, apparent means not actual, but then in the same sentence they go on to explain how this not actual force affects the weather. It's a not actual force, it's a apparent deviation, not actual deviation. How can that affect the weather? It can't. But they'll lie straight up to you in the Met Office nonsense. Whoever's written this is just an idiot. But that adds to the problem when Brian's detailing them coming to you and saying you don't understand it. Here's an entry from the Met Office telling you how it affects the weather. No, it doesn't. It's you rotating underneath something and watching it seem to drift. But there's no actual deflection. The thing's supposed to be travelling in a straight line. It doesn't matter if it's not. It could be doing loop-de-loops if it's an aeroplane. But the fact that you're travelling underneath it, seeing it seem to drift as it does loop-de-loops, is the Coriolis deflection. It's not actually drifting. So if I'm on a roundabout watching a plane doing loop-de-loops, and as I watch it seem to come towards me, that's just me on a roundabout travelling towards that part of the sky. Well, that's not actual drift. The plane doing loop-de-loops doesn't worry that it seems to be coming towards me on a roundabout. Well, that's the effect they claim Earth's got. You're travelling towards the aeroplane in the sky. It doesn't care what's happening to the ground beneath. It's just doing its loop-de-loops. But you seem to be travelling closer and closer and closer to the aeroplane, just like the roundabout. That's what they claim happens on Earth. Well, when you see the plane seem to come towards you because it's claimed you're turning underneath it on Earth, well, the plane doesn't have to account for that, number one. And it's not actually drifting. You're supposed to be spinning underneath it. So the plane hasn't got to concern itself. You're not changing its trajectory. You observing it seem to drift doesn't affect the thing and in the slightest. And you observing something in that claim to be inertial reference frame, like wind, doesn't change its orientation, direction, speed, or anything else. Because it's not doing anything. You're just observing it seem to do it because you claim to turn underneath. So this Met Office nonsense and Wiki itself will lead you to believe in pretty much the same paragraph or sentence sometimes that it's a not actual force, i.e. you only observe it because you seem to have a deviation because you're turning underneath. And then they'll tell you in the next breath that it's actually forcing something to do something, which it can't. So that's why people don't understand it and why we're told when we detail it concisely, not actual deflection, you turning underneath 15 degrees an hour as you turn underneath. That's your claim, globehead. They'll tell you don't understand and throw some crap like this from the Met Office up and tell you, no, this force changes the direction of the wind. No, it bloody doesn't.
Nathan.
Can I ask you a question?
Go ahead, Neil. I'll go after you.
Then how do you go about changing the definition? If something's proven to be wrong, how do you go about changing it?
You present a cluster screw doublespeak of endless paragraphs of nonsense that will confuse most people. And then in that paragraph, you make sure you tell them that a not actual force that doesn't change the direction of anything changes the directions of things, leaving people confused.
Yeah,
I think he was asking how would you change the wiki page if it's wrong?
Yeah, how do you change the definition?
You don't. It doesn't matter what happens. Me and Anthony have tried this. So we were sat in St. Bees, we observed Macord Lighthouse, and went, you can see it at 34 miles. So he went into Wiki, changed it, and then he got banned from changing things.
All right. We're back to what you said earlier. People taking personal responsibility with whatever is presented to them, at face value. So we see the contradiction in Wiki. You just pointed it out after they said something previously that was a total contradiction to what they said in the latter. One described what it was, and the other one totally goes the opposite. So we see the double speak. Now, the ballers respond to the double speak. You don't understand. You didn't read far down enough to see this part. And we say, yeah, but we did. And it contradicted the first part. So should we just throw out the whole citation? Or do we keep the part that's true and then point out the part that's a contradiction? And why, Mr. Baller, can't you see the apparent contradiction? That's what it's all about.
Apparent contradiction, not actual contradiction.
Well, actual contradiction. A parent just jumps in there. But the whole point is they see what we see what they see, and they don't want to let go of their globe. And we're saying, well, we don't have any affinity to it. I just want the truth. So if the earth is moving, then this should happen. But the earth isn't moving, and that isn't happening. And you want to go and get all these citations that contradict the very argument you're trying to say. How come you're not smart enough to see the doublespeak? How come you're saying, I don't understand, when you can't even have comprehension of what they're doing to you?
At some level, you've got to almost formulate it into modus tollens. You've got to say, if the Earth is a sphere and is rotating, we will observe Coriolis deviation at the rate of 15 degrees an hour as we rotate underneath an inertial reference frame. We do not observe 15 degrees an hour deviation as Earth rotates underneath as a non-inertial reference frame. Therefore, Earth is not a spinning non-inertial reference frame. Well, I think that is modus tollens.
Sounded good.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, if the Earth is rotating, then we'll have shorter flights going east to west. We don't have shorter flights going east to west, so the Earth is not rotating.
Yeah, that is again. That's modus tollens. That is actually that's already been claimed though by QE. Probably mine has too, but there we go. Yeah.
I just saying, that modus tollens sounds better when you lay it out because you're laying it out in a formation. But that is modus tollens, but in a more layman's version. But modus tollens laid out, if you're in a debate, when you lay out modus tollens, it does sound way better done the correct way.
Yeah, it's if P then Q, not Q, therefore not P.
Yeah.
Yeah, same as the Black Swan formulation. But there's been many, and although he's not piping up, he's probably eating his breakfast, because QE's got that kind of logical mind. He's working it out without necessarily formulating into the logical consistency formally, but that's how the logic progresses. But you've got to have a certain amount of logic in your mind to begin with to be able to do that, right?
Yeah, and the more yes you do, and the modus tollens is a dangerous thing because it's used in the wrong way so much because you can beg the question with it if you choose to very fast.
No. That's a misunderstanding. So that's an affirming the consequent. If P, then Q, Q, therefore P, as opposed to not Q, therefore not P, is an affirming the consequent. They dress it up as though they're presenting a logical consistency, but it's actually a logical fallacy. It's subtle. The difference is obvious once you know it, but, if the Earth is a sphere, then I'll observe star rotation. I observe star rotation, therefore Earth a sphere. If P, Earth a sphere, then Q, star rotation. Q, star rotation, therefore Earth a sphere. If P, then Q, Q, therefore P. The logical fallacy is that one doesn't necessarily follow the other. Also, in their particular logical consistency claimed to be, anyway, it's actually a fallacy, they start off with a begging the question fallacy if the Earth's a sphere. Whereas modus tollens starts with their begging the question fallacy in the case of the Black Swan. If the Earth is a sphere radius 3959, that would be your P statement. Then Q, every distance to horizon can be no more than 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet. That's just their geometry. Fairly straightforward. If P, then Q. If Earth a sphere, then sphere geometry. Not sphere geometry, Black Swan. Therefore, not P, not sphere. So, game over globe. Very different to the fallacy of affirming the consequent.
So affirming the consequent is actually, the two of them are not, they're not modus tollens, just one used in the right and one used in the wrong way. One is modus tollens and one is just affirming the consequent.
Precisely, yeah. Well, if P then
right,
Q,
I didn't know that. Sorry, thank you.
Yeah, if P then Q, Q therefore P, affirming the consequent. If P then Q, not Q, therefore not P, modus tollens.
That clears it up because I thought it was just modus tollens that was being used incorrectly. I saw it as modus tollens was a tool, like I say, a mental tool that could be used either logically or illogically.
No.
If you know what I mean.
No, it's the assertion that what you have is a logical consistency. It's figuring out that on the surface, if you're unfamiliar with logical fallacy at all, and someone says, if I travel to the bottom of the sphere that we live on and look up at the stars and see them rotating, then that proves that we're on a sphere. Most people will hear that and go, yeah, that makes sense. And it sounds like logic. That's the idea. But you've got to be able to say, well, no. What you've done there is you've told your person that you're explaining this to that they're stood on a sphere at the beginning of the example. Isn't that the thing you're trying to prove? Well, that's begging the question. But then you've given an example, a Q statement, something that you're going to demonstrate in actuality, star rotation, forgetting the fact that you've told them to move antipodal by assumption, right? So then you've taken your actual observation, your Q statement, star rotation, and said that it does happen. Well, it does happen. But the one doesn't follow the other. Your star rotation doesn't necessarily follow that the begging a question fallacy of I've moved antipodal to observe this doesn't follow. So that's where the fallacy lies. But most people just don't recognise that. Whereas with a logical consistency, you can assert Earth with a sphere shape as asserted by our opponent. And they assert with geometry, Earth curve maths, what that is. And then you say, here's a presentation that shows beyond certitude that that is simply not the case. Now, because it's presented with logical consistency, what are they going to do? Well, they at first just went, nah. But yeah, well, it's stuck around for 9 months, so hasn't it? For good reason, because it is logically consistent. And the people who recognised the logical consistency had to make a concession. Well, we've got two horizons. What a chance of luck, it's on screen right now. Well, one is a horizon that only exists in maths, the geometric horizon. Well, if it only exists in maths, can't be seen, can't be measured, it's not a horizon. It's not a horizon to block boats and buildings. And then they give us a redundant term of apparent horizon. Now, that is to say more consistently what they actually say, which is we do not see the geometric horizon. Well, the modus tollens presents what they actually claim. Earth is a sphere with sphere geometry. Rebuttal, we don't see sphere geometry. It's only maths. Well, for those of us who recognised the logical fallacy that is reification, we already knew it only existed in the maths, but with logical consistency, we've forced our opponent to actually say it. Our religion that there's a sphere beneath our feet only exists in maths.
So, affirming the consequent, that's the name of that one. Affirming the consequent fallacy.
Yeah,
you got two. You got modus ponens and modus tollens, right? The modus ponens is if P then Q, P therefore Q. The corruption of modus ponens is affirming the consequent. If P then Q, Q therefore P. Modus tollens is if P then Q, not Q, therefore not P. The corruption of modus tollens is denying the antecedent. If P then Q, not P, therefore not Q.
So just to break that down, if I plant seeds, based on the assumption that everything else is done, I'm just not going to clarify it, but if I plant seeds, grass will grow. Yeah? I planted some seeds and some grass grew. That's modus ponens. Now, the affirming the consequent would be to say, if I plant seeds, grass will grow. There's some grass. Therefore, I planted seeds. Well, no, the gardener planted them. One didn't necessarily follow the other, but it sounded good, didn't it? That's affirming the consequent, as opposed to modus ponens. The bastardization, as correctly pointed out. I couldn't actually remember the formulation of modus ponens to give that example. You saved my ass. Thank you, QE.
Welcome. It gets confusing with all the P's and Q's.
Well, it's the most simplistic one as well. If P then Q, P therefore Q. If I plant seeds, grass will grow. I planted seeds, grass has grown. It's the most simplistic logic there is.
Is this the same fallacy that leads people to believe they're the container for the atmosphere?
You tell us, what's that fallacy?
Well, it's the one with gas pressure, assuming that there must be something else going on that we can't observe.
That's not an assumption. That's inside the definition of the term.
Can you define what gas...
But it assumes it.
Well, no. Can you define what gas pressure is so we know what we're talking about first of all? What is gas pressure?
Do I really need to define something so basic?
Well, it's called the Socratic method. We need to agree on terms. So what is it that we are talking about? You tell us what gas pressure is.
Before I continue, are you recording this?
Yeah, that's what I do. This is what I do for a living. Yes, absolutely. This is my job.
Never mind
so
then.
What is gas pressure?
He left. He's an idiot. You don't want to be recorded.
It's okay. I can define it for him. That's no problem. It's the force exerted on the walls of a container. That's what gas pressure is. So it's not an affirming the consequent formal logical fallacy. It's an antecedent consequent relationship. Without the container, there can be no pressure. Quote, Conspiracy Cats 2019. You can't have gas pressure without a container. It's in the definition. It's the force exerted on the walls of the container.
Yeah,
I thought his demonstration was going to be blow on his hand.
He said it was an assumption, and it's not. He's a number.
Well, had that have continued, it's then the challenge to the claimant. Oh, right. So we can have gas pressure without a container. It's just now it's time for clown show demonstration and presumably with several containers.
No, just blow on your hand.
That was epic, and I took it a whole different way. We obviously know what makes him leave shows. It's a recording, so the recording is the antecedent for him not to back his claim, right?
No, that's if you use that as a generalization, then that would be an affirming the consequent. If recording,
well, but help me fix this because it was funny. I'm laughing. I may have not described it right.
Yeah, let's not do it.
He would stay. He would stay if the show wasn't recording, but the show is recording, so he's leaving. So he leaves shows when they're recorded because he doesn't want to be on record.
So what's the room he's in called again? After show.
I'm still laughing. It's too much, man.
Ugh.
We're going to do a logical fallacy presentation, not this Saturday, but a couple of weekends after that. So the next one after the science presentation's over is going to be logical fallacy.
So it's science part 4 this week, and then 2 weeks from then it's going to be logical. I love the logical fallacy shows.
Yeah, we're going to do logical fallacy. Yep.
Are they recorded?
we just talk amongst ourselves for the fun of it in after show.
He's the type of guy, thinks, that wants to come in when all the show is over and just try and bombard someone who doesn't know what they're talking about, who doesn't know stuff very well, or thinks they don't know stuff very well, with a lot of lies that he'll get away with not having to address live. You know, he's like Zanuck and them who like to jump on people when the show is over, this kind of stuff.
Yeah, but the way he does it is so cowardly because there'll never be any evidence to prove what he said because he never says anything if it's recorded.
But they like the sound of what we defeat them with when we say fallacy, then explain with the definition of what they've used and the example of the fallacy formulated within the fallacy, which takes some time. They like how effective it is. So they want to be able to come in and just cry, what did I hear on the last show? Oh yeah, they were talking about affirming the consequent. This is just an affirming the consequent. You're just assuming gas pressure needs a container. Now that's a claim. So, okay, you're saying that that's incorrect. So you're saying gas pressure doesn't need a container. You're saying it's a fallacy to assert that you need a container for gas pressure. That's what they're claiming. That's a fallacy. He's claiming no container is needed. So, okay, now, claimant, show us gas pressure without a container. And roll on the clown music. That's when you get Thunderfoot and idiots like Blue Marble Science showing you several containers, or equivocating gas with solid, or telling you that the Earth and atmosphere isn't the same, gas isn't the same as atmosphere. Rumpus. You get all sorts of crappy nonsense out of them. You won't get them formulating a nice, consistent how it's a fallacy, why it's a fallacy, and then a very simple demonstration that concludes their point nicely, i.e. a demonstration of gas pressure without a container. They're never going to do that. You can't.
Well, don't forget, Nathan, they actually show
the fiction
a differential pressure in a container, and that's their proof.
Yeah, Commander Willie. Don't forget Commander Willie.
Yeah, the guy at the beginning of the show said, yeah, I can show gas pressure without a container. I can blow on my hand.
Don't forget Zanuck's centrifuge showing a differential pressure in it, but it was contained. So don't forget that.
I think what you were trying to say is how can we have pressurized gas without a container?
Yeah, when you say pressurized, that makes the word totally different. So from the lips of without the container there can be no pressure, quote Conspiracy Cats 2019, or without the balloon there is no pressure, Conspiracy Cats 2018. I keep getting that wrong. I was saying 2019, but that first quote's actually 2018. Anyway, correction aside, we now have from the same person, well, it's not gas pressure that we're talking about, it's pressurized gas. Like that somehow changes the question. How can you have pressurized gas without a container?
Any proof of non-pressurized gas?
Blow on your hand.
I think that's pressurized. I feel the pressure when I do it.
So how would you have dressed the dude this morning? I
exert pressure with my lungs when I do it.
Well, yeah, your lungs are a container. They've created a higher differential when you've pursed your lips. But how would you have attacked that as a claim from the Globehead? We had that exact claim at the beginning of the show before you got here. So a guy says, I can demonstrate gas pressure without a container. Okay, how? Blow on your hand.
Well, you're using a container to do that. It's called your lungs. And it is in a system that is contained. That's why there is gas pressure in your lungs.
Perfect. Right, where'd you get the gas pressure from in the first place? How are you filling your lungs with gas at pressure if the sky's a vacuum?
Yep, it's going to be very difficult.
Yeah, they can relinquish their potential to analyse this stuff logically by asserting some nonsense. It's a bit of pain relief for a 5-minute period. And when we start to demolish it, all they do is talk through you. That's all they do.
And the funny thing is, too, about the demonstrate gas pressure without a container, we know it is a trick question. Yet the ballers keep on attempting to actually bring forth proof for this trick question by showing us a variety of different containers and then claiming there is gas pressure without a container. So they keep falling for this trick question.
Not a trick question. It's not a trick question. It's an assertion to make them back their claim. They claim Earth has gas pressure without a container. And we say, what? You say Earth has got gas pressure in a vacuum without a container? How can you have gas pressure without a container? It's a rebuttal to their claim that the sky is a vacuum. It's not a trick question. It's
but
back
it
your
is
claim.
A trick question because it is obviously impossible per definition, per calculation. But they keep overlooking this.
Yeah, but that doesn't make our question a trick question. It's saying back your claim.
Well, they would have to be able to.
Yeah, they can't though.
But they aren't. They can't.
Doesn't make it a trick question.
It, or they don't want to realize it. So
it
they
makes
keep
it a
on
demolition.
bringing all these container examples.
It doesn't make it a trick question. It makes it a demolishment of their assertion that the sky is a vacuum because you can't have gas pressure without a container. We know you can't have gas pressure without a container. They think Earth has gas pressure without a container. Therefore, we ask, how can you have gas pressure without a container, given we know you can't have gas pressure without a container? And it's then up to them to back their claim that Earth is a sphere with gas pressure in a vacuum without any containment. That's down to them. It's their claim. That's what they say the sky is, not us.
Okay, I concede, like, within a debate format, it's not a trick question. But if you would find such a question in your physics exam, you damn well better believe it's a trick question.
yeah, maybe. But what would the answer be if it was a physics question? So, physics paper says, how can you have gas pressure without a container? Answer, with an exclamation mark, you can't!
Yeah. If you're a globe believer, you might write this large blabbering essay.
No, you just write, if you're a globe believer, you'd write, just go outside and look at the sky.
Ooh. Well, even if that were actually proof, which it isn't, but if you would presuppose that it would be proof, then even in an exam, just saying it like that, it's not going to fare well.
Well, it's special pleading and begging the question.
Yeah. Exactly.
Oh, I'm looking forward to the fallacy show. It's going to be like 2.5 weeks, though. That's like almost the end of September. Hey-ho.
Good things come to those who wait.
Indeed. Have you got any new ones? Will there be new ones discussed? I love learning new fallacies.
Yeah, I'm going to throw a couple new ones in there. Yeah, because ballers have employed them. I couldn't believe one baller employed argument from silence. Thanks, Jim.
Argument from silence. I've heard of this. Can you briefly go through it now, please?
Hey, before he goes, how can you argue if you're silent?
Maybe that's the point.
Boom, boom.
It's appealing. It's basically appealing to a lack of evidence, almost an argument from ignorance, but I'm stretching it a bit.
If I
argument from silence is claiming something to be true due to the lack of anyone saying anything, any support for it.
Nobody's got anything to debunk that the unicorn claim is real. There literally isn't anybody trying to disprove it either. There's nothing out there disproving it.
I'm thinking of this, and it rings like an argument from ignorance. It just has that ring to it. I think I can classify it. I'll have to look that up and see if because it's really close.
That's okay. Some of them are, aren't they? They're closer. I get which of the two I get mixed up all the time.
Red herring
and straw man. Yeah, I always get them mixed up. But they're very close.
But those are easy to mix up. This one's a little bit more nuanced because argument from ignorance is argument for or against a proposition on the basis of the lack of evidence against or for it. It's sort of connected. I have to think about that.
That's what I just did, an argument from ignorance with the unicorns. That was definitely an argument from ignorance. There's definitely not enough evidence to support that there isn't any. That's argument from ignorance, right?
Argument for ignorance. Don't politicians use that all the time? Fallaciously, by the way.
A lot of what politicians do is fallacious.
Of it.
Yeah, a lot of what politicians tell to the people is fallacious. I mean, yeah, spot on.
Yep.
Well, if you guys don't mind, I'll just stay silent on this one.
Perfect. With that, I'll say a huge, massive, enormous thank you first and foremost to both Discord and G+ panels for making today's after show possible, and of course a massive thank you to all of you in either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams for hopefully smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, and all that good stuff. Be sure to check out nathanoakley.com and the Flat Earth Debate Forum to keep up to date with the community debate. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!